Alright, pressing the go live button, making sure that we get everything set here. I'm gonna move OBS just around here for a moment. Ooh. Here we go. Alrighty. Cool. How's everybody doing today? We got a lot of stuff to do. Pretty much right into. Hey Doofy, nice to see you. Let's see here. Bradford Walker, Authoritative News Network. Saw Six of Swords in here. Weinstein, always nice to see you in the chat. And I think there was one other person. Ranos is tired as all hell. That's unfortunate. Nice to see Alchemic Raker here. Jeez, all the gang's here. I'm not doing so bad, honestly. I'm mostly caught up on work, which is good. I got paid today. Getting paid is a lot of fun. I like being paid. So cheers to that. Nice to see you, Ugma. Cool. Alrighty. So, two things here. There's no audio setting for interesting. Okay, that's fine. That's mostly fine. Hello, Victor. Always nice to see y'all as well. Y'all had a fantastic stream last night, which we're going to be reviewing very soon. And yeah, so our plan for today is to first read out the Substack article, have a little bit of discussion that I found online, not recently. In fact, I've seen this person on Twitter quite a bit, but I've never interacted with any of her content, any of her writing. I decided to go through the Substack and decided that it was pretty good. So I'm going to, in a few different streams over the next couple of weeks, read out some of the stuff that she's written, because I think that they're handy and a fun jumping off point for discussion. And then after we read the Substack, which shouldn't take more than about 10 minutes, talk about it for maybe another 5 to 10 minutes. If folks have questions, comments, which I do, we're going to jump into a stream that Victor, who is in the chat now, and the Basic Expert did with my good buddy Jeffro Johnson. Just reacting to it, talking, discussing some of the concepts that they're in, a new sea change within the momentum and within the general attitude of the tabletop RPG space, at the very least when it comes to the OSR, Pro-SR, divide, split, however you want to say it. As a good beat-up said, the OSR is pretty much dead now. So we get to discuss that. Nice to see you, Durian. Always nice to see you, buddy. That's pretty much all I got. I'm going to move this microphone over because I think this is going to be a little bit better. And then I should probably put my hair up in a ponytail because I'm getting overheated. One thing they do not tell you, I don't know how girls deal with this, but one thing they tell you about having long hair is that if it covers your neck, you're gonna overheat a lot more easily. Jeez. Alrighty. So, viewer count's ticking up, so I think we're just about ready to get into this. I think pretty much everybody's here now. So, this Substack article is once again by Wren Scarborough. You can find her at VorpalBard on Twitter and at Wren Scarborough on Substack. The title of this Substack post is called A Beginner's Guide to Dragon Horror. Or the subtitle is, or please write me Dragon Horror, I am begging you. Hello, Planet Torpor. I haven't seen you here before. So, let me take out one of my headphones so I can actually hear and adjust my own voice. Alright, so, life is full of little tragedies. Littlest and most petty of these is the fact that dragon horror, as far as I can tell, is not a thing. Yes, I am taking this personally. I would very much like to read dragon horror. You may be saying, well, Wren, if you're so upset about it, why don't you write some? First of all, I wanted to read it, not make an effort. Second, I do have an idea for a dragon horror story brewing in the back of my head, but that's going to take a long time to grow into something decent. Besides, I'm being petty here. I want it now. If you also have exquisite taste and want dragon horror to be a thriving subgenre, and even better, want to write some for me specifically, here's a quick guide on how to make dragons work in a horror setting brought to you by someone who has not done that. Excellent. Yes, we're discussing dragon horror. Look at that image on the page. This is chosen well. This is well picked. This is an image of dragons that I'm not terribly used to, but I find it interesting. First, we need to address why dragons usually don't work in horror. Simply put, nobody believes in dragons anymore. Fear is dependent upon belief. If you can't be convinced of the possibility of a monster, if only for the duration of a story, that disbelief shields you from fear. Possibility is all it takes. You don't need your audience to believe in dragons. All you need is for them to become, if only briefly, uncertain. Fear thrives on uncertainty. Therefore, the first question to ask when writing dragon horror is how do you make people believe in the possibility of dragons? Vampires, ghosts, and all the rest of the classics all hide well enough in the shadows of civilization. A great deal of their inherent possibility hinges on this. The average dragon is not on a scale that lends itself to hiding. It follows that the first step to making a dragon seem possible is to make it small enough to hide. From there, draw on real live predators and figure out how they camouflage themselves. Lions blend in with the tall grass. Crocodiles disguise themselves as logs. Your dragon might look like a rock pile or a fallen tree at the first glance. Its horns may look like branches, its scales may change colors like those of a chameleon. Perhaps it allows moss and lichen to grow on its body further to meld with its environment. Let's see. Consider the Knucker and Lindworm, which you may remember from Dragonology, a book I assume all well-adjusted fantasy nerds have owned at least at some point in their lives. Disregard the traditional heraldic dragon anatomy and make them slithering, serpentine, perhaps with vestigial wings. Hide them in wells and tunnels and underground streams. Dragons in mine shafts, dragons which see in the dark, dragons so deep below ground they no longer have use for eyes. Echolocation, feelers on their snouts like moles, claws which burrow with the same efficiency with which they tear flesh. Everybody take a drink? For my first major mistake. Dragons hibernating beneath the earth or the ice for centuries, awakened by foolish explorers. Hide your dragons in the sea. 80% or so of the world's oceans have yet to be explored. You can't tell me there's no possibility of sea dragons. Survivors will be told they only encountered a saltwater crocodile, yet no one has ever heard of a crocodile so far beyond the shore. Whole ships will be crushed between the jaws of a dragon larger than any whale. Underwater volcanoes will burst open as a dragon shakes off molten rock and rises to search the depths for prey. Get weird with the design. If it's snaky and magical enough, it'll still be considered a dragon, and even then, dragons that are less magical and more bestial will be readily accepted as such, so long as they have that draconic je ne sais quoi. Look up old illustrations of dragons from back when their depictions mainly lean grotesque rather than majestic. Consider how different cultures and their times portray them. Research the animals living in the environment in which you put them. Play with breath weapons. And side note, if you want some fantastic variety and inspiration in dragon designs, read Brandon Mull's Fablehaven series. Also, just read Fablehaven, it's really good. Your dragons could be shapeshifters. There's more than enough precedent for that. Perhaps your dragons walk among us, living perfectly normal lives aside from occasionally devouring virtuous maidens. We all have our vices. These dragons may be celebrities, greedy billionaires, corrupt politicians, actors whose charisma dispels those vicious rumors about the odd things that happen behind the scenes. May the horror of your Ooh, here's another one. Everybody drink? Maybe the horror of your dragons is their humanity. On the other end of the spectrum, what about cosmic horror dragons? Vast, scaly beasts of incomprehensible scale, dwelling on a plane of existence pressing against our own, threatening to break our minds and our world. Dragons fated to swallow the earth. Dragons so vast they blot out the sky. Dragons are that. God, I did it again. That's like two in a single minute. Dragons that are beast and god and apocalypse. Their talons scratch our world through the work of their cultists. They hoard not gold, but minds. They sleep, they hunger, they stir. There is endless potential for dragon horror, and not only because it is seemingly uncharted territory, dragons are creatures of limitless forms and roles. There are always more stories to be told, and let's be honest, the best ones tend to have dragons. So, I think I like this. There's a bunch of questions in the chat, though. I see some disagreements. I'm hovering over the ban button. No, I'm lying. You guys are free to disagree. All right, I'm going to go turn the air on, actually. Continue asking questions in the chat, because I'm going to read through all of them. Alrighty, we're back to it. So, bunch of good questions here. Let's see here. Victor Gorchev said, "Reign of Fire is good dragon horror." Is that the one where it was in England, I think, that was getting ravaged by dragons, and a bunch of Americans came through, and there was a tank that shot a harpoon gun, and some dude who died with an axe? Is any of this sounding familiar? Let's see here. Hoisteen, and I think I know where he was commenting on this. He says, "That is a worthless point. We all enjoy horror where we don't buy that it is real all the time. Alien is one such example, as are classic zombie horror films. I don't know if Alien is actually an example. I think the premise of Alien is that we could find, if we advance far enough into space, we could find things that are horrific and hostile to us, that could wipe us out, or at the very least have the potential to wipe us out, and certainly want to. And how awful it would be to be in close quarters with the equivalent of a rather intelligent rabbit animal. Rather intelligent, simultaneously rabbit animal. I think that's where the article is coming from. Brenda says, I don't know if it's necessary for a horror monster to be small or stealthy enough to hide out and jump at you. And then Ranos corrects himself. Oh, I see, she wants it to be plausible to appear in the modern world. Yeah, I think that's the idea. Oystein says, most good horror makes you have an existential crisis. It does not use jump scares. Worthy point, certainly. Six of Swords says, I think Troll Hunter worked as a horror film, and the trolls were actually quite large. Six of Swords says, good film. Victor Gorchev, here we go, says, in my modern setting, I have an international crime lord called the Pale Man, who's actually a black dragon. And then everybody properly gave him many praises for this. You did act. Yep, there was. Okay, I knew I had it. Shadowrun has dragons openly rule. Yeah, that tracks. Rando says, I think the issue is more how you turn a dragon from an action fantasy monster into a horror movie monster rather than how do we make it believable in a modern setting. I feel like those two things are not necessarily disparate from one another. I think the Sci-Fi Channel was full of both terrible and good movies that basically took that premise was, we're going to film in the modern age. There's going to be, we're going to have a Manticore in modern times facing soldiers from the U.S. Army in modern day Iran or modern day Iraq, because in the Middle East is where those creatures still have not been discovered or have been left alone. Let's see here. That was Matthew McConaughey? There's no... Let's see here. Hufos Acre says, I have a number of powerful primordial dragons in my game who could be seen as patrons. Ever think of having creatures like that in your game? Yes. I've done it before. Less so nowadays, because I'm more in tune with the AD&D style of dragons in which they are rather threatening apex predators, but there's still things that you could beat the crap out of, especially if they're younger, or on the younger end. And not all of them are intelligent, not all of them are sentient, and a precious few of them are spellcasters. So their ability to be horrible is like context dependent, and they often do so in different ways. But the players are typically, in my setting compared to others, they're usually in a slightly better position to handle them, if that makes sense. All that being said, I'm not opposed to the idea. Like my idea for the setting I currently work in at the very least, the idea is that there are a bunch of adult and ancient dragons all over the map, all maps in the world, that are sleeping, resting, and just laying eggs every single year. And then a bunch of the wormlings bounce. A lot of them get eaten. If they stick around, they get eaten by the parents. And those that don't and survive become young. And so people hunt them when they're of from wormling to young stage. But once they start getting to adult, where they have like a lair of their own, they've begun changing the natural, or at the very least the local environment, to suit their needs and make it more difficult to challenge them. That's the point at which people stay away, and that's the point at which I might use one as a patron. But currently I have not included one in patron play. Actually, you know what? I might just keep this here. Hoisting says, we're going to move on to the show with Jeffro Johnson in just a moment here, but Hoisting says, I would say that the main issue for using dragons in horror for a modern audience is it's no longer common for communities to be picked off by apex predators, and dragons represent exactly that. That's where you have, I feel like, Wren actually addressed this when she recommended looking at looking at location. It's not common. A dragon is not going to be attacking New York City. But what about a dragon in Louisiana? What about a dragon in Toledo Bend, Louisiana slash Texas? That comes up and attacks a bunch of fishermen, people on vacation, because it's just been, for whatever reason, it's been sleeping there. There was a native, we'll get Stephen King to write it, so that he could say there is a sunken Indian burial ground, and beneath the Indian burial ground is a dragon that's been sleeping there. But also beneath the dragon is another Indian burial ground. And that's what you have to get to in order to defeat the dragon. I think that would be Stephen King's approach. But there's still plenty of isolated communities in the world today. Let's see here. Planet Tobor says, anything lurking in swamp water is terrifying. That's correct. During the sleep, he says, my man's veering east to avoid rewriting Tremors. Excellent. Yes, thank you. I'm happy somebody recognized me. Hufos Acre says, one of those dragons is a void dragon that exists outside normal space and time, often popping around to devour powerful casters or artifacts. And you could easily include that in space for all I care. Oystein says, that reminds me of the plot of Devolution, but with dragons instead of Bigfoot. Oh, folks, think of it this way. How much better would the movie Annihilation be if there were a dragon in it? Rando says, oh damn, this is Tremors, but above ground. Oh, perfect. Perfect. I like this. Victor says, at Planet Tobor, what do you have against the Dutch? Oh, that's mean. It's very presumptuous of you to ask what somebody would have against the Dutch. Most movies would be better with dragons in them. I might be inclined to agree. So, we're going to, now that we've had fun, and we've been, how long have we been going for? I suppose it doesn't really actually matter. Been going for like 15 minutes or less. Wait, no, no, we've been going for 24 minutes. Actually, that's fine. We're gonna move on to Victor Gorchev's stream, which was excellent on the Basic Experts channel. So I suppose it's actually the Basic Experts stream. Which account? I don't have to deal with ads or anything like that. Come on, come on. Where's my history? Not browser history. I don't think anybody. Just YouTube history. Just YouTube history. And while we go over this, I'm gonna be playing No Man's Sky. Play speed on. I think we might be. Victor, never cringe at hearing yourself. You have to take joy in the sound of your own voice. Be like me. Just be like me. It's all about the confidence. But unironically, I will go back and listen to some of my own streams because I'm desperate to figure out ways to, for one thing, stop saying That's probably the biggest one. How to stop saying but among other things, how to form more complete sentences, how to stop interrupting myself mid-sentence, and occasionally learn how to structure my points better, how to word things better. We're also going to drag this over here so that I don't have a Hmm. Display number 2. Yes, of course I want to save it. All right, hit the screen. We're just gonna make this nice and tiny, fit it up here. It's mostly audio, so I'm not terribly worried about catching everything on the screen. But you folks get the idea. All right, here we go. Ooh, that sounds nice and crisp. Victor, I love your intro, by the way. How long does it go on? Maybe I should skip it. Could be. That'll be good. Oops.
All right, welcome everyone. Another week, another Natural Ones. Joined as ever by Victor Gorchev. Thanks, Victor.
How are you doing?
And our special guest this week, Jeffro Johnson. Welcome, Jeffro. I'm glad you could come on and talk to us about D&D.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Welcome.
I don't know. People are anxious to get into it, and so I think we should get into it as well. I guess we kind of talked about it. Like, I have your How to Win at D&D little pamphlet here, and I think
you read it? Did you read it?
I did read it. I did read this.
Wow. Okay, start talking, man.
I read it on a plane flight as I was flying.
How's it going, Jonathan Rock?
California, to visit family. So I enjoyed it. It's very interesting. There's a couple things that I find interesting. I like that you cite rules in it. This, for those out there that want to know, it's like a. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jeffro. It's a segment from your upcoming book. It's like a little teaser, if you will, and it focuses on time mostly. And
just to give you folks a little bit of context, they're currently discussing How to Win at D&D, which is Jeffro's 7,000-word preview to a much larger book about the logistics and theory behind running first edition AD&D rules as written, and some of the specific rules that were also included in other games that produce natural grand campaign play. It will also be the subject of an upcoming video series on my channel called How to Run the Grand Campaign, sort of a homage to Matt Colville and Jeffro Johnson at the same time. That bear was lifted straight out of Gene Wolfe's Book of the New Sun. Is that? Are you talking about the bear from Annihilation? Because if you are, that's awesome. And I have to go read that now. Anyways. Time to
like the
there.
Kind of the history of a bit of the history of time and sort of maybe a little bit of theory. And I found it really interesting, for instance, how you were not just looking at original Dungeons and Dragons and Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, but you looked at other games as well. And I thought that was really cool because as someone who is a fan of these games, and I like old school games, and I think there's something special about how older games play, that it was cool to see this connected sort of expectation of how time is supposed to be kept within these old school games, within these older games, within these first gen games. So I thought that was really cool, and I enjoyed the writing style. It was informative and good, easy to read writing style. So yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a nice. It's a short flight from Idaho to California, so it was the perfect length for that very short flight. So it was good.
I have to.
Have you ever been to Fort Falls?
No, I've not been to Fort Falls.
Oh, okay. Well, I have, so that's my one Idaho connection. But beautiful area. I wish I could have stayed longer. But yeah, you can tell the online reactions to the Bro SR that want to attack on the angle of Gygax never played that way. You know, there's a very large contingent of those people that are feel very, very strongly about it. But the reality is that almost all the pre-1980 RPGs have this same kind of assumption that the calendar of the real world is going to be connected somehow to the calendar of the game world, and that between sessions time would move forward. Our friend Crossface, yeah, he's heavy into RuneQuest, and that one's a really interesting example because it uses a different ratio than 1-to-1, and the choice of having that different ratio for the connection to the real world calendar had a big impact on how that game's background developed. So the idea that people didn't do this stuff, or that it's just some kind of idea that I made up, is just completely ridiculous. Something changed around 1980 or so, and this entire way of thinking about RPGs pretty well evaporated. One place where you will see it mentioned again, I guess this is important for the people who want to argue. Gygax doesn't lose his convictions on this concept when he made other RPGs later on. So the idea that maybe he had like legendary adventures is what I'm thinking of here. So the idea that maybe he just was high on cocaine when he wrote AD&D, and then when he got over the hangover, he suddenly changed his mind about all this. That's just I don't think that's a really reasonable claim. But yeah.
On my Gilded server, we were talking about. I'm a big fan of the Secret.
Just briefly, I'm gonna give Jeffro a little bit of praise here. He has gotten considerably more concise when expressing his ideas. I am very happy that he's accomplished this. I'm ecstatic at the fact. Is it this way? I think it might be this way. There's another planet inside the system I'm trying to find. But Jeffro had an issue when we were talking on our stream with being a little bit more concise, with keeping brevity in mind. I think there was a joke that we asked about, like, what is real D&D, where I was trying to, like, fish for a specific answer, which was a bad idea. I try not to do this in interviews anymore. And it took us something like on the order of 40 minutes to get to it. But Jeffro, and keep a look, I'm telling you this to keep a lookout for them, is Jeffro has a number of kill shots in this interview that, as far as I'm concerned, are fantastic. Oops. Where is it? Somewhere over here. I can't see it. That must be it.
The Blackmore film, and I know Griff has issues with you guys, but I know you guys appreciate his film.
We are fans. We love his work. We love what he did. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for what he did.
Yeah, I mean, his film is great, and it was really cool in that to see like just how exactly that worked, because I remember hearing like how they would call up Dave Arneson and be like, I want to do this and this and this, and this would be like in between. They were playing Napoleonics, obviously, so it's between the battles and all that stuff. But I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to allocate resources here, and then they'd meet up for a battle if the battle was going to happen, and I just thought that was really cool. And so like, and to your point about, and this was my hang up for a while with you guys, because I think the confusion kind of comes maybe from this assumption that you guys worship Gary Gygax, or that you worship Gary Gygax, and it doesn't. I don't think that's what it is. It's just it's in the rules, and even if Gary didn't play that way, it doesn't change the fact that it's in the rule book.
Yeah, like what we did starting in 2020 was it's like, imagine that there was this game designer that wanted you to blind test his game, and he mails it to you, and it's this pile of crap, right? Well, okay, not a pile of crap, but it's like really confusing. You like your friend, and you want to play test his game, and so you just take what you got, and you're gonna describe what happens when you play his game blind with no other information than what he gave you. This is really valuable.
Jonathan Rock has a fantastic point. Mitt Romney. No, I'm not making that comparison, but at least Romney and Obama at the very least. But yeah, like comparing how we talk about the Blackmore film guy in these glowing terms, that he was basically responsible for in many ways, responsible for starting our movement. And his constant whine or complaint on Twitter is, "Do not bro SR at me. I will block. I only block the bro SR." He's very insecure about it, if that makes sense. Frozen tubers, what the hell are these things? Exactly what they say they are. I guess they're mine now.
To a game designer, somebody to do this, and you know, it's D&D being what it is. If somebody did it, they didn't do it in a way that could convey the key things that you need to know if you wanted to do it too. So what we did in 2020, it was basically like a playtest, you know, it shouldn't be that controversial, but it is. RPGs, the way people think about RPGs and the way they reason about them, the stories that they tell themselves about the history of RPGs and how they came to be, it all hinges on Rule Zero, basically.
I'm of the opinion, I used to defend Rule Zero, but I was under the assumption that people were using it the way I was, which was, I don't have time to look up a rule right now, but I don't want to lose momentum in the game, so I'm going to make a ruling right now, I'll come back and look up the rule, and then going forward, like, that's what we're doing, we're using the rule. Or there's a gap here for something like very specific, and it's not in the rulebook, and my player wants to try it, and it's like, okay, well now I got to figure something out. But it doesn't seem like people use it that way. It's become this almost excuse to just not even read your rulebook at all.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the angle on it that really kind of irks me is this idea. Well, there's two ideas. There's one that you can't be creative unless you rule zero, which I'm like, no, that's completely not true.
One of the things that the Bro SR still has to deal with to this day is the concept that, like, oh, well, you can do anything with your game. Nobody is going to stop you from making a change to your system. Nobody is going to... Zombie Gygax is not going to run through your door and threaten you with a shotgun if you don't play rules as written. So, therefore, you should. It's a little weird. Kayfabe. Listen, this is our Harambe moment. The moment at which we mispronounce kayfabe is going to be known, will be known to historians as the beginning of the collapse, and no other reason. Okay, thermal protection falling as well. Fix that. Yeah, I get the idea. Which one is my thermal protection? I see it now. Nitrogen stabilizer. Oh, there we go. Cool. Back, baby. There's a storm outside, so I feel like I might as well go underwater. Does it affect me under here? A little bit, it looks like. Anyway.
And then two, the other one is like, well, you know, you can try to play the game, but you know, of course you should be able to change it to suit your taste, to suit what you want to do at your table. If you look at other complicated games, you know, well, it was James Stryven that just pointed out that as soon as you change the rules, you lose your community. You become this island. None of your analysis now has really any bearing on what anybody else does. You also can't do any of the really crazy things that the Bro SR ended up doing when they scaled up.
Oh, hello to Edwin Boyette. I think I commented this on my channel. Edwin probably does not remember me from this, but I was in a comics, a chat focused on a group chat focused on independent comics, and he signal boosted my comic Eyes of the Forest a few times, for which I'm eternally grateful. It's very weird seeing him in chat, but I'm grateful nonetheless. So welcome to the stream, buddy. There's also a point that, what's his face? Mr. Jeffro just pointed out. Oh, the storm's over. That's handy. That was fast. Something Jeffro just pointed out that I pointed out, of course, and we've had a lot of conversations back and forth on this. The concept of the grand campaign, or even the regular campaign, or just gaming in general, when you start diverging in terms of rules, and I can confirm this because I run 5th edition, I'll get to that in a moment. When you diverge in terms of rules, every time you bring somebody to your table, there is an onboarding process, which you have basically failed from the get-go and now need to fix. The player has sat down at your table, they are unable to begin interacting with your game to start out, and you have to fix a problem that you have created before this player has ever gotten to the game whatsoever. I do this all the time when it comes to 5th edition, because 5th edition is something of a bad rule set. And so I get away in a lot of ways. I managed to get away with changing rule sets because people are aware that 5th edition is a bad rule set, or at the very least, as a baseline, is not going to be satisfying. But when it comes to games that were meant to be run with an open table, that were supposed to produce a standardized method of play, which is desirable for a lot of reasons, you become, as Jeffro said, an island. You're no longer connected to the rest of the gaming community without a significant amount of work. Even if you write that handout, you have still produced something that, who the hell just... Oh, it's like a... It's dead, is what it is. Even if you run up a handout, that doesn't change anything. You are still an island in the gaming community. It just so happens that you have a boat. I sat down and read the sections of the DMG for Random Dungeon Generation this morning. I've glossed over it for 35 years. Dude, Appendix A is awesome. There's a video on my channel called AI Dungeons and a live stream called AI Dungeons Part 2, which I marketed as being about how to use Midjourney and ChatGPT in order to produce dungeons. And it was a total lie. It was complete, like, marketing kayfabe, if you will, that I used as an excuse to talk about Appendix A. It's a lot of fun. I highly recommend you go check that out, because Appendix A is awesome. It's one of the few, and I'll say this, it's one of the few elements of D&D that has remained relatively consistently high quality through the entire 50 years of its lifespan.
Up and integrated their campaigns. It's just a mess. But yeah, you know, really the thing with the Rule Zero stuff is it's just not a good basis for anything. It's not a basis for discussion. It's not a good basis for a long campaign. It's it's some kind of smoke and mirrors. It's Secret King stuff. You know,
well, I always viewed the way I see Rule Zero is like you're really experienced.
Oh, there's plenty of harlots all over,
book,
buddy.
You read it inside and out.
Don't you
and
worry.
So you've come to this situation where it's something you've never encountered before, and it potentially isn't in the book or something like that. And now you have a way to use it. But it's almost like it's like a tool for someone who really knows what they're doing. And I think a lot of those early wargamers were those people and could wield the power of Rule Zero responsibly. And then it fell into the hands of those that were outside of like the Twin Cities and Lake Geneva, in my opinion. And it sort of just spiraled out of control from there a little bit. No.
And I think on the basis of the text of AD&D, I think Gygax himself was horrified by what happened when people that weren't wargamers took this and ran with it.
We got a super chat from Crafty Matt. He's on vacation too, so he's tuning in from vacation. He says, "I just want to know after this morning, am I honorary Roasar?"
No, it's maybe can you guys explain this to me, because I remember like a year ago I was getting in fights with people all the time, and now I tune in and the same people I was getting in fights with are posting like, yeah, this book at the week here, here's a picture of my book. Yeah, by the way, oh yeah, we're playing Raw at my house this weekend, and AD&D first edition only, that's the way we roll. And so what happened? What happened? Like, where do these people come from? What's going on?
I don't know. I would be lying if I said that it wasn't because of watching you guys. And I've gotten to know some other bros guys. Even when I was having my spats with you guys, there was a couple that like never. They kept following me and they kept being cool with me. And I was like, oh no, okay. Well, if we're gonna reciprocate, that way, like I'm willing to do that. And so then I started listening and I started thinking about things. For instance, like I said, the argument that is brought up a lot. Like Gary didn't play this way. I started thinking about that. It was like, hey, that may be true, but these are rules in the book. And again, just because a lot of people never played that way doesn't mean that magically erases those rules in the book. Like they're still in there.
I think the Browser has a certain alignment language. We'll call it that, and it takes a while for people to maybe like learn it. And to kind of poke through some of the kayfabe. Is that how you pronounce it? I've never actually said the word out loud, so I don't know.
Kayfabe.
Okay, kayfabe. Okay.
Kayfabe, there it is again.
It takes a while
Jeff.
for some people to poke through that. Some people haven't at all yet. But yeah, like I said, I think alignment language is a good description of how you guys interact on Twitter. And
Yeah. Well, I mean, we were trying to do something, and you got to keep in mind, we didn't know where any of this was going. We didn't know we knew in 2020 that we had found something, but we didn't know what to do with it, and we were arguing amongst ourselves what to do with it. And there's people that speak other
Good night,
alignment
John.
languages
See you later,
that
buddy.
consistently have shown themselves to be unable to contribute to an ongoing analysis or discussion of this sort. So, really, for 2020 and 2021, we just needed these people to leave us alone, because we were using social media as a medium through which to collaborate on this very narrow topic and explore the way this strange thing actually worked. So if you ever wondered why we were, but it was also really funny. Like John Mollison's memes or Mephrodis's original memes. The more it triggered, the mainline RPG, like the more fun it was. So we're not sorry. We're not sorry at all. But you could tell in the book though that it was like, in 20, last year I got a lot of feedback of like, I like the Pro-SR ideas, but I just don't like the way they conveyed them. All right, well, okay, if that's you and you're not dishonest, that's really the only thing. Well, you got my book now. You got my excerpt there. How to Win at D&D. It's kayfabe off. Okay, it's just a straight argument. It's just the facts. It's the evidence to provide the historical backing and the evidence that is in the early rule sets themselves to persuade you without funny memes and bodybuilder images.
I don't actually know how to heal myself.
We think we're right. So yeah, I hope it reaches a broader audience than the Arnold Schwarzenegger meme. Yeah.
My very first interaction with Proposal, I was getting attacked by somebody, and I just started attacking back, and then we stayed neutrals, and yeah, that's it. So,
it's guy stuff. It's guy stuff. I mean, when I was a kid, my best friend, he's got to play BattleTech with me. I played Car Wars, he played BattleTech, but we wouldn't have been friends. I wrote a poem making fun of him. It was a dumb poem, and I passed it up to turn in my work. He sat in the front, and he saw that poem, and he turns around, and he looks at me. You take one step off of school grounds, and you're dead. Well, we never got around to having our fight. We hated each other, but then we both found out, oh wait, you played Trade Wars on the local BBS system. Then we were best friends. So guys get into fights, and then they become friends, and that's moment.
that is true.
So I got some super chats here. I want to read them here because they're kind enough to send them. So Dungeon Master James, I love Dungeon Master James. He's a good dude. He says, "Can Warhammer Fantasy role playing?"
I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit.
Whether it's a faction player or whether it's low-level players that are doing stuff in downtime, or whether it's multiple tables coming to play the game at different times, when you have that framework in place, it allows you to lift heavier. It allows you to do things with your campaign that people that aren't fluent in this will think are impossible. I'm sure that they hear us talking about it and they think, oh, you guys are just making this stuff up. There's no way you did that. But it really does change. It changes everything more than you would think, and it's really surprising that it got lost to begin with.
Yeah, it's interesting because like I'd read the rules and I kind of skimmed over it and hadn't really thought about it. But as I thought about it more, there is some benefits that I noticed with it. You know, it forces players to pick different characters and to have like a because Gygax mentions like most players are going to have a stable of characters in both OD&D and in AD&D. He mentions this.
Yeah.
And they're gonna have a stable of characters.
This is one of the things I was harping about on Twitter quite recently, because a certain fellow, who I'm not going to name because I can't remember him, was rather insistent that the idea of keeping and maintaining multiple players was actually, multiple rosters of multiple characters per player was impossible. Couldn't be done. Couldn't be done. Oh, certainly could be done. But couldn't be done. Was impractical. And this person later went on to complain, or backpedal rather, ran to the damn hills, claiming that, it was never about the idea that you couldn't do this, just that it wouldn't produce long-term campaigns. You see, it wasn't, I was wrong. It never had anything to do with any of this, I don't know. That has no free slots. Okay. Never had anything to do with... Oh, that's a starship, menu. Whoops. Never had anything to do with whether we were able to engage in long-term play or not, whether or not we would have an issue with actually doing this in the first place. No. It was always about that casters thought that we weren't going to. And of course, we did, and it wasn't an issue, but...
No free slots in ship inventory.
What can you do? What do I think about this? Teleport receiver. I install this. Oh, I can. Huh. That was distinctly easier than I figured it would be. Huh. Alright.
Characters, and so like it
We'll see.
it forces your cat wants
Yeah. Yeah.
he has opinions.
Yeah.
It forces players to pick different classes and whatnot that they might not otherwise pick and play, and I think that's cool. I like experimenting with things and character types that are different and whatnot, and yeah, I don't know, it just seems fun, and it seems very useful because, like, you know, I have my own homemade little OD&D booklets here. You already know this, but it says, you know, it's a game for up to 50 players in this, and Classic Traveler says it's up to like 40 or 60 or something like that. I don't remember, but it's a similar number.
Yep.
And it's like when you have that many players, obviously 50 of them are not all at the table at the same time. So if you're running a giant game like that, how do you coordinate? Like, it's in the rules, like it's in there. Sure, maybe not everyone had 50 players wanting to play the game, but it's there in the rules. So how do you manage that many players? And if you have to have everyone as what you guys discovered as well.
Yeah, and we'll contrast everything we've said about time, all the things that it does for you. You know, take time out, and you guys I'm sure you guys have been exposed to more role-playing games and game groups and just various sorts of people.
How was I using as my combat
starship? Tell me if I'm straw manning here. Tell me if I'm being unfair. But
is that it? That doesn't look like it. Maybe it was this
people
one.
that are serious about RPGs.
What kind of guns do you
their
have?
game is going to be, let's say,
you don't have shit. All right, that's not
one
good.
party of players only. The player characters are the focus of the campaign. Everything around them is sort of set dressing for them. And then, you know,
How about you? Do you have guns?
Maybe
Base beam?
the group goes with stop time. They'll play. Let's say they play 6 hours,
Yeah, a couple,
maybe
yeah.
4 hours a week. They'll play for that period of time, and then they'll freeze the game, and then they'll come back the next week, maybe, if they can all get together, pick up where they left off. And so probably in a year, you know, the amount of time that passes
Tell you
that
what,
campaign
you'll do-
for the average person, you know, we're talking like 95% of the time here. Even if they play a whole lot, you know, they're probably not going to cover more than a month of game time.
Wait,
at
whoops.
most.
which is weird because then it's like with you've been playing a campaign, let's say, for a year.
All right, there's a couple of questions in chat that I want to address. Let's see here. So, let's see here. Every YouTube, Edwin Boyette says this. Every YouTube video I've interview of Jeffro I've heard has the same mild tone. I cannot understand how Broisar generates such an immense amount of butter. It's multifaceted. We'll get to that question. There were a few explanations in the chat. Jeffro's much less mild on Twitter, though he's much nicer on Twitter now than he used to be. Or intestinal distress for the gentle creatures here in the chat. No, folks in chat are actually quite, generally speaking, quite down with Jeffro Johnson. Which I, of course, partially credit myself with accomplishing. I am, of course, as everybody knows, the great BroSR representative? No, ambassador. What folks used to say. The defectors a year ago were much more acknowledged. Maybe. That's not entirely wrong. Light Fisher. So, part of the reason why Jeffro generates inordinate amount of hate, I would say, is just a general acceptance or willingness to claim that somebody is doing something wrong. People are generally speaking extraordinarily hostile, extraordinarily uncomfortable with the idea that they are doing something wrong. Guys are a really big fan of the idea that there's you could get to a given end point as long as you're just willing enough, as long as you're strong enough, as long as you're, how do I put this? As long as you're good enough at whatever the hell your job is, you can accomplish anything. It's very attractive to guys, but there's a small error in that idea, in that idea. I think that's a fine way of describing it. There's just a slight error in that idea. And the error, of course, is, oh, somebody is quite nearby. Closer you. Hello. I can't actually see you past the dam. What the hell kind of ship are you using? Yeah, I assume he's the ship, isn't he? Yeah, so people are... Hey, what? I'm gonna leave a little bit. Probably good. Yeah, so people are generally speaking very uncomfortable with the idea that that they're doing something wrong. They don't understand the idea of, like, no, there are not multiple ways of doing things. There are multiple correct way of doing things. What the hell is that? I don't know what's hitting me right now. A long time since I've done like dogfighting or anything like that in this game. I'll see. We're gonna reactivate this.
But a month has passed and the character is like level 4, let's say, or 5, right? And it is like a weird little time thing.
Yeah.
I've heard people say, like, within 5e, for example, they've run games where, maybe you were saying this, Vic, I can't remember, where like you could get to like level 10 in game time in like a week or something like that.
Yeah, like a week has passed and you're like level 12. I'm like, okay.
and you went from this one hit die, loser to level 12. This is weird.
I think that if you use hex core rules and depending on the size of your map, you can probably stretch it out. Because when we did our Scarlet Heroes game, it just took me like a week to get like to the single city, and that was like over the course of like a 2-hour session. So but yeah, I get what you mean though. Otherwise,
so that type of gaming, we know for a fact that's not the way people play in the 70s. We've got evidence in the rules. There's these strange things that they say, How would you just describe the contemporary way of playing RPG? I would say it's zero-dimensional gaming because it's about a point in the world. It's like a holodeck in Star Trek where they can move around in it, but like.
Am I dogfighting with the mouse and keyboard? Yes, I did in fact make that mistake. How could you tell?
Like it's just the illusion of moving around in it. It's the impression of a fantasy world or a fantasy story. Whereas like the way the 70s game designers, when they laid out these campaigns, it's more that they are setting up a model world that kind of takes on a life of its own. And there's I don't know, there's something exciting that happens with it. And this happened even when I was in the early stages of this, where I only knew conventional play plus time. Just think straight ahead OSR gaming, and we're adding in things that we find in the AD&D rules as we go. And we haven't done the big war games and the Ronsteins and the faction plays. We're just like dipping our toes in this water. As soon as we turned it on, as soon as we had the time, there was a change. There was a change because every week the state of the world was different. There was in the early stages, I would come to the game and I would try to like prepare 6 adventure books. That was back when I was running B2 with BX. It's like I'm gonna run my game. I'm gonna introduce the people to the setting, and I'm gonna here's 6 books, and then you'll have some choices, and we can start playing. With time turned on, the world started generating campaign books, and if players went.
All right, so a couple more questions in the chat. Everyone, boy, it's story time. I realize I'm your channel name. You're doing it wrong is effective marketing. Surprisingly, yes. In spite of how much people hate it, which I'm quite happy about. But it really does piss people off in a way that you just would not expect. Of course, it's necessary because they are doing something wrong. They are failing their players and themselves. All I see is I failed at that. Hi, I think I need to hire one. Cool. Anyways.
Someplace and then came back, 6 weeks later. That's different than if they came back, 3 months later in real time. It was different if they came back, 1 week later. We had like a rule where it was like, well, the weather in the game is the same as where the DM is. And so now we had, when the druids really needed that rainstorm for the call lightning spell, it was a really big deal if it was raining at my house. And then there was other little things too, like I was real jealous that all the other DMs were running Halloween games, and I was like, I didn't have, it's like I don't have a little zine, with a Halloween themed adventure in it I could run through, Well, like it didn't matter. The players went to the spookiest place on the campaign map and like killed a bunch of undead, and we had our Halloween themed adventure because the players made it happen of their own volition. So it's going back to the frame of a dancer and the connection that a dancer has, with the rules, the AD&D rules, and just leaving them alone, and just anytime I could use any part of it, that expanded the simulationism of the world in a way that I could never match by winging it. and then the places in the world that all would subtly change week to week. You know, I couldn't keep notes on all of it. You know, it would all mostly just be in my head. But like when you think, okay, those goblins that you met last week, you know, you're coming back now. What would it be like 2 weeks later? You know, that question is such a great question, and you're asking it all the time about everything in the campaign world. When you do that, it's not like the zero-dimensional gaming. Everything is kind of static, and you need a lot of content to keep feeding your campaign before it just fizzles out. But this type of gaming, we didn't want anything else. You know, like a one-page dungeon that I made myself, and some wilderness encounters, and then some stuff that the players made up. You know, and then whatever else I improvised in a session, you know, taking notes on it. All of that stuff sort of like percolated because it had like a petri dish for it to all interact in. And so, you know, you come to the game again a week later, and you know, you got all these interesting molds and fungus in your petri dish, and it changes the adventure hooks in big ways and small ways. You know, like the game would be noticeably different if we had a session on one day or the next, or if we played an extra session because of time pressure. Oh, we got to get this game done this weekend because the stars are aligned and we got to move. You know, it's astonishing to have the machinery of the rules supporting the spontaneous creation of material like this.
You know, Crossface's comment here, trusting the rules to improve the game before just carelessly throwing them away. I had a question. It's a more practical one, and it kind of, I guess, goes into Lord Mateus's super chat here, which I'll put that up as well. So $5 said, is your book going to go beyond the philosophy and provide practical advice on how to organize and implement these ideas? And my question along with that is, you know, like I'm a dad, I have a little 3-year-old daughter, so I don't have a lot of time, and so I run a sandbox game.
Yep.
And you know, it is very much just like relying on random tables and what do the players want to do, and crafting around that, because I want to prep something like almost not at all. Like sometimes I'll show up to the table and I'll just fly by the seat of my pants.
Yep.
You know, so how hard is it? How much is it more work to keep track of time this way? Have you found that it's easier? So for me, like as a dad with a 3-year-old and very limited time, is it something that someone like me could do if I had enough people interested in trying it? Would I struggle with this? Would I run it take a lot of time, or is this easier?
Yeah, no, you can't prep for this campaign the way you think you should. You know, I've been dunked on for this because it's like, oh, I made 15 one-page dungeons and then the players went somewhere else. You know, like, you know, if you've prepped, if you've done your homework, and done everything that you think you get from a conventional standpoint. Like you've sketched out these places and statted this up, and you thought about it. You piled your notes. Like almost assuredly, the players are going to want to go someplace random. You know, if they tell you the week before, oh yeah, we're going to do this next week. When they get together, they're going to persuade themselves to do something else. They can't help it. They love having that freedom. So on this subject,
yes, he does eventually get there. He had a number of, like I said, rhetorical kill shots in this stream. One of them, as it relates to this specific tangent, line of discussion, conversation, is the idea that every session, fundamentally, is session 1. They can be connected to other ideas, other, how do I put this? Other plots? And why is this tagged as the scientist? I wonder why. Yeah, we're over there. Oh, that's right, there's no loading screen. Oh well. But just the idea that the primary goal when folks are engaged in this content, when folks are engaged in this style of play, your considerations and your knowledge of what prep means basically doesn't count anymore. It's different. This is what the upcoming video series is going to focus on, because it's, to my mind, regrettably confusing to a lot of people, and I wish it wasn't. I wish it was slightly easier to understand. But, you know, Did they change what this planet was again? Hold on a second. This is an old save of No Man's Sky because I realized I didn't want to... I had no interest, actually, in starting a new save, and thankfully got myself to stop. Discoveries, yeah, we're looking at this system. Discovered 3 years ago by me. Sentinels require obedience. Yeah, this is... What kind of world is this? I need to know. Planet data. This should have... Is Gek? Where's the classifications? I feel like it should be... Look, it should be here. Space exploration. Is it not? Maybe not. Anyways.
I think I'm uniquely qualified to address the question that Lord Mattias is posing here. I've seen every which way that the bros have done this, and of course we've been in competition with each other within the Bro SR to outdo each other, and so that led to a sort of an arms race, you know, to see who could do the craziest stunt. I don't recommend stunts. I don't, like, if you're short on time, don't try to set up your own version of Brovenloft. Like, don't do that. And then there's other stuff, you know, I watched last year, and I listened to all the feedback that we got when everybody was going nuts. And the thing that really sold me was, like, you know, going back and reading the preface to the DMG again and saying, okay, what we're doing, if we judge what we're doing on the basis of what Gygax is saying in this forward to the DMG, you know, really, how much of a point do our critics had? So what I did this year, Lord Mattis, I'm just giving this away to you right now. It's the practical advice.
A Natural One's exclusive here.
Yeah. I had a big fight with the bros right around January because my book episode was coming out, and what we were doing didn't match what I wrote in the book, and so what I ended up doing was I was like, you know, this are out of control. And there's things that we haven't done, like a mystery to me was that why didn't we ever get a mega dungeon? Like, we know that mega dungeon play is intrinsic to the conception of OD&D. You know, it just right off the bat tells you to go do that.
Yeah, to make 12 levels at a minimum.
And so we were I was irritated at that, and there's also some things in the DMG about the Appendix A dungeon that I hadn't tried, and so I was like, and then there was one more thing. It was a suggestion in there about when you get a new player, that everybody in your group is going to, like, take on all the roles at the basic level of the game and sort of help this person have, like, the best experience possible. So I had my doubts at that time. I was like, you know, I dropped people that just wandered into Trolopulus without really any concern for them at all. Like, it was sink or swim. And so I was like, okay, I'm getting ready to go do some cons and stuff and do some demo games. Like, what am I going to put these people in? So I made an area that was a new first level area, and it had the mega dungeon. And I told the guys, I was like, look, you guys need to. Well, we had 3.5 hour sessions at that time, and dropping down from 6 or 7 or 8, you know, from 2020. And I was like, you come into the game, you argue about what you want to do, and then we don't really have time to get a satisfying session in with that time scale. I'm going to tell you, you guys are playing the dungeon. I'm telling you right now, when I'm running, this is what you're doing. There was some good things and bad things out of this. On the plus side, I got a dungeon environment that sort of took on a life of its own in a way that I didn't experience when players in 2020 kept exploring the overworld. But I found out the hard way that removing player autonomy from people who have ever experienced it will not go well. You're not going to like how that goes. So I would say, even if you had a 3.5 hour session and the players are showing up and talking about what they want to do, and that's taken away from the session, it's not worth the fight. It's not, you as a DM, you can never tell the players what they want. Only they can tell you what they want. And so like
This is so fascinating, especially since I've had a recent, extraordinarily recent discussion on this. The idea that structured research, how was that for? Buildable technology, please. I need microprocessors. I have no idea how to build these whatsoever. Structures, alloy, yeah, core tech, cool. Absolutely. None whatsoever. Anyways, what a fantastic game. This stream got me to extremely excited to keep running 1E. It is exciting to run 1E, okay? I'm looking at different games that I would like to play soon. And I feel like 1E's almost at the top of the list. I'm like hesitant, but like gosh, it would be a lot of fun. From chromatic, I need carbon nanotubes, which I'm pretty sure I know how to build. Yeah, these I can build. How the hell do I make the other stuff? Make some creature pellets, why not? Not only something I can do in a microprocessor. How do I do that? But, you know, you get the idea.
It's even as a playtest, even as like an experiment, you can't take it away. So anyway, I started doing the con games. I played face to face more recently, and what the bros ended up doing for me in the process of putting up with me was they made a new low-level environment that would be the entry point for people who wanted to try this out that had no idea who I was or what we were doing. And to your concern about timekeep, I've taken so much flack for Jeffro Johnson burned out. His campaign only lasted 6 months. That was it. Mine has gone on for 40 years, but Jeffro's only lasted 6 months, and he's a fake. It's like, okay, I was doing things that caused me to just want to disappear on a rock climbing trip for 6 months and never come back. It's true. I can tell you what they were. But yeah, what I came up with was a new synthesis of, as far as possible, being straight D&D. It was Daddy Warpig that told me, because we were playing around with patrons because we wanted to play the high-level war game that we had never done as kids, and that we didn't know anyone that had ever done it. And so we wanted to see how that worked, and so we were just doing all this high-powered stuff in 2021 and 2022, and so one of the criticisms that we got was that patrons are not raw. You can't hand over an NPC to someone because they didn't earn it.
Yeah, that was me.
Briefly, I think this was the first time I ever fought with the basic expert, and it was on the subject of patrons. There were two topics that we fought over, which was, one was the idea that Matt Colville had already done patrons. I was personally offended by this. As a big Matt Colville fan, the idea that he had gotten to a discovery before we did, that he hadn't. The discussion centered around a few characters. I could actually name the characters in his campaigns that were ostensibly patrons. It was Lady Jessica and Lord Dalrock. Dalrath? No. The Lord of Dalrath. The Baron of Dalrath. Not Lord Dalrock. That's gotta be some kind of Freudian slip. The idea that these were patrons, but these were NPCs in Matt's world who were formerly player characters, keyword formerly, who no longer had control over those characters, but to whom Matt would occasionally source feedback and ideas on what those characters would do. And interestingly enough, in one of the very few examples in which he actually used these NPCs to inform the state of the game world was not an explicit contradiction to what the ostensible player character's orders were, but in in a way that, like, Matt very clearly deviated from the orders to produce a more dramatic outcome, and that's not part of Brovosar patron play. The second objection, insofar as this discussion in the chat is fascinating. I'm loving it. Insofar as whether or not patrons are, quote, raw, insofar as, like, having additional DMs at the table or having additional referees, manage specific NPCs, no, this is not a violation of raw. The game is silent on this matter. It has no prescriptions against it, certainly. So including what are basically assistant referees whose jobs are to handle specific NPCs in the game world and maintain not necessarily an objective, but impartial state among the NPCs of the impartial favoritism. Sorry, to prevent favoritism among specific NPCs and a stagnant, regrettably consistent approach towards the player characters from these NPCs. You take the shortcut, and a brilliant shortcut it is, of having people other than you manage these NPCs. Listen, the Brovosar still misses rules. There's nothing wrong with it.
Hello, BX. Yeah. No, I seriously thought about that, and the great thing about that kind of criticism is that you can set up a play test to explore whether or not there's a point there or not. And the only problem is that with RPGs of this type, it really takes between 6 and 8 months before you know if your experiment is good or not. And you always find things you didn't even look to think you wanted to test to begin with. And so no, here we are. We are literally 6 months down the road of that test. And what I could say, it was Daddy Warpig had suggested this, and I think there's a lot to it, that patrons or high level characters or people that are operating a lot in downtime, if they came about in your game completely organically, just through the process of playing the game, like what I'm looking at right now, it's with I've got 2 different tables, and the people at those tables have different characters of different alignments, and we have this we have a very accessible, very easy to understand Ronstein, where the players can easily imagine how they fit into it, and there's only enough conflict.
Well, that's Anthony Huso.
Strangeness and developments happening at any given time that it's not hard for me to keep up with it, and I don't feel guilty like, oh, I've got these patron players that I'm not giving enough attention to. So it's really low stress, and it doesn't. I think it doesn't matter what scale you play at. If you have people that are in an open world where they are playing roles and they have conflict that is coming about under a fog of war, if you have those things, whether it's at 1st level or whether it's at 9th level, it doesn't matter.
I do think Evelyn Boyette says, I do think that Braunstein should be spelled Braunstein, as in the Beef Brigade, the chief meal of the Beef Brigade, to provoke the soft bodies. Amazing. Yeah, Doof, you're a mod on my channel. I feel like you should be able to properly post the link. I don't know necessarily what's going on with that. Thebluebar.com/ it's popping up on my screen. What happens if I pin message? I feel like maybe that'll work. That one works. Okay. What the hell is that thing? Why is it running? Come here, take some food pellets. Amazing. Can I ride you? Tease out honey. Why do you have honey? I guess he's mine now. That's interesting. What the hell is that? What the hell am I looking at? I'll tell you what, this planet has changed since I last saw it. Get back here. Get back here. So you can leave. Anyways.
It's going to be really fun. You know, we were showing off last year with the stuff we were doing, and we were beating our chests a lot. I think you can get all of the salient points from this. Like if you decide, like, okay, for a year I'm going to take these guys' crazy advice. There's going to be enough intriguing and exciting stuff, and there's going to be enough stuff emerging from everything that's happening in the game, what the players are putting into it. It's fine. You're gonna get the salient experience of what we bring to the table and what we're talking about. And furthermore, as those characters grow from level to level and become more powerful, you're going to be able to you're just putting you're putting more plates on the bar there for the bench press, right? You know, it's so you don't have to learn the entire game all at once. You sort of ease into that higher level stuff and grow the world with it. I don't regret what we did at that high level. I felt like there was a block there for most people at most tables. There was a reason why they didn't do it, and we really needed to solve a problem that was holding people back.
Well, I'll say for me, my criticism, I think it was from not understanding what you guys were doing, though, too. Like, sure, maybe handing out an NPC, a high-level NPC to make an NPC to a player who didn't earn it isn't rules is written. But like you said, you guys are playtesting, and I can see the logic behind, I want to see what happens at this higher level that no one has ever really achieved. You know,
Yeah,
what
no,
does
kid,
it,
kid
what,
me
what does
told
it
you
look
couldn't
like?
do it.
Yeah.
Right? You know, when I was 12, I didn't think you could do it.
So,
Alright, we're back.
While we're on the subject of patrons, I had a super chat here from, I was waiting for it. Matt Martin, who's supporting the channel, he says, how much interaction are patrons involved in per session, and how are they allowed complete agency? So he has a question about that, since we're on the subject of patrons.
All right, let me see. You know, it comes and goes. You know, there was something, and this is just from experience. This is not like go do, you know, this is how to do it, or this is what you should do, or just things that we have played with, like literally in Trolobulus last year. There were people who went off with the solitaire play that was pioneered by the guy running Macho Man Dog. The guy he's from Australia. He's the smartest person I've ever played D&D with, and he's the best D&D player I've ever played with. You know, he won a month-long Bronstein event that I set up in 2021. That was July of 2021. His character did the coolest things, ran the table. It was really fun to watch. After, you know, I DM'd when I got up in the morning, because people were in different time zones. I would run downtime requests at breakfast and lunch, and then at dinner, and then I'd stay up late because of I'd wait for him. I don't know if he was going to bed or getting up, you know, in his time zone. Like I would need to like adjudicate something with him. Needless to say, after DMing every waking moment when I was not at work for a month, I didn't want to do anything with D&D for quite a while after that. Like I'll go on a trail run, I will go rock climbing, I will go camping, but I don't want to see this stuff. I don't want to think about it. So yeah, that much interaction with patrons, with that many, it was 12 for a month, always on as we
Stop smoking.
That's too much. That's obviously too much. And so when I walked away, this guy playing Macho Man Dog, he was having
Give me your eggs.
He played his domain solitaire. You know, there's those weird rules for clearing a wilderness in the D&D.
Those all dead now?
I never knew anybody that even did any of it. So he starts doing this, and this whole world is just being built in downtime. You know, and then when I came back, it was a few months later. I came back and the guys were playing, and I was like, all right, well, let's see this. And so he was playing in this domain that he was playing. So like playing the game created the material that we needed in order to play the game. And as an expert on his region, he effectively did way more prep than I would ever do, basically, by making it. But like, you know, it added a lot to the game to have somebody there that knew all the little details of the history of this thing, of all the stuff that happened from him laying out that domain, building it up, establishing it, drawing pictures of his Pegasus core and things like that. So the solitaire, it was like a pendulum swung from like always on with 12 patrons, you know, it's like, oh well, that doesn't work, you know, that's just going to burn out your DM. And then the other way was like, okay, we've got these guys who are running domains and they're basically solitaire, which people, I'll tell you what, when I ran my Bronstein, that's what people wanted to do. I had to tell people, like, look, I'm not here for you guys to all play solitaire D&D, with like setting up your domain and stuff. Like, I don't care. I want to see troops moving. I want to see magic user duels. I want to see 27th level sorceresses having fights with people. I want to see weird alliances happening. Like, play the game. This is a chainmail war game, but this is not whatever you want it to be. So no, there's a lot of people who will come into your game, and then as sort of this sort of like coffee and character creation thing I've seen you guys doing, like Crappy Matt. Like, these guys are more like coffee and my domain people, and then, you know, and we may never play with them at all. Like, they're just on. There's a hex on the map where these people are doing stuff, and we never play with. But then one day, we'll end up in that hex, and they're like, whoa, they're excited. And now all that stuff that they've done, you know, sort of gets brought into play, and it's kind of an unusual thing at that point.
Are they solo gaming in the same time? They're obviously in the same 1-1 time as everyone else. Okay.
Exactly. And so one of the things I did last year was, you know, well, and Dubs has done this better than me, so he's probably a better person to ask. But what I wanted to do was like, okay, you know, we've got the solitaire guys, and we've got people who play my way.
This place was a night. Yeah.
That we can integrate.
I completely forgot why I even chose this plan to begin with. All right, well, glad this is still around.
You know, what had happened was it was in downtime. What was it? It was something stupid. There was a Ringo Starr of the United Caveman who never played in a single session of the game. His player was Krasova of Krasova magazine fame, and he could never game at the same time with us. But like he played this character Ringo Starr, so he was like, okay, yeah, I'm scouting out the area, and I let drop to him. And this doesn't take hardly any time at all. It's the same amount of time that you would spend getting in a fight with somebody about D&D on Twitter. You know, the exact same amount of time to add to your campaign or play games with your friends. So like he asked me, like, you know, DMs me his actions, and I'm like, oh yeah, well, there's the sorceress is back at Mount Glovermore, yada yada yada. And so he goes to the players and is like, hey, you know, we need you guys to help. We need an army. There's this occupying force at Mount Glovermore. It smells. We got to take care of it. So he went up there. The players went up there, and you know, on a Thursday night session, you know, they end up having a battle up there. And there was this other patron player, a guy who played an 11th level magic user who was invisible, who tagged along. And so one thing happens after another, as they do. And so one week they fight the battle, and next week they go into Mount Glovermore, and I think the sorceress charmed them all. And so now they're coming out of Mount Glovermore. The players are like trying to think of a ways to get out of this, and they can't. And the players had rescued Ringo Starr from the clutches of the evil sorceress, and they're coming out. And this guy who doesn't know anything that's going on, like, all he knows is what I've described to him, and he's playing this 11th level magic user that he didn't earn, and so he's there. They're coming out. That he starts a fight with the sorceress right there. It's really weird. You wouldn't think it should work. I don't know if this makes any sense at all, but somehow through the magic of the Petri dish, and I've said this before, that when you have the calendar running, things go slow enough that you can keep up with them. They go fast enough that things happen, and this is very, very different from conventional role-playing games. But even with a situation as complex as this, where we have solitaire players that don't attend sessions,
All right, I'm gonna get some questions and then skip ahead again. Oh, that's like a little guy. I didn't mean to try to kill you. Ease out honey. What the hell does that do? Oh, I could just bring him along. That's pretty nice. Anyways, are players in Metropolis writing reports? Many of them are. Especially back in 2022 and in the 2020 game especially, I think everybody was writing session reports. Everybody who played was writing session reports. You couldn't get them to stop. Which I think was pretty good. I like it. I enjoy having my slaves, players, write session reports for me, because I think it just saves so much time. I write for my job, and then I write like a lot of tabletop content that has not. Why is my thing taking damage? So like me stopping to write the events of something that already happened inside my D&D game is like really unattractive. I don't like doing it. Not a fan. I'm so sorry. I'm just not a fan. But I can be involved to do it, and more importantly, my players can be convinced to do it. So I'm gonna start uploading them, I think, because I really appreciate them. So, anyways. We're going to skip to a more important, I shouldn't say more important, we're going to go on to like the next topic, which I think is somewhere around here.
Here's a product idea, free product idea for you. But for people that have short session times, or that have wide open games where you have a whole lot of small adventures all over the map, I think we have a term for that. They had a haunted man's, sort of a vine-covered man's, and they went in. They had an adventure in there, and a week. But I think about it, it's like, if they go back, what's going to be different about this place when they go back? And one guy, like, he set a fire in my haunted man's, and it was like, oh, you set a fire in my haunted man's, and I'm thinking, that reminds me of in Chronicles of Amber, where Corwin like lays the curse on Amber, and then you had this thing across multiple planes of existence where this curse turned into this just total nightmare. Well, in the book, he fights the thing in the black spot, in multiple dimensions, and so he fights it out in different ways. But I'm thinking, no, the guy that started the fire, like, this sort of violates the rules of fairyland, and it's creating a curse inside of that man's, and it's growing, So we only have a little bit of time when we play a session. There's only so much we can do, especially if it's in that 4-hour one. But when you've got a location that can grow over time, they may go back to it next week. It may be 2 months. The more time it is, the more I'm going to embellish it, and then you just naturally keep thinking about it. Like all that stuff I made up. Like there's a logic. Like your brain wants to impose a logic, and then the players are talking about it too, and they're like, "Oh wait, that was a phantasmal force, and that's just like what we encountered at location C in Dungeon 3. I bet there's a connection there." And you're like, "No, there's no connection." But then you wake up the next day and you're like, "Oh my God, they're connected." So yeah, and it's fine. It's fine. The stuff that emerges is going to be better than what most people design. Oh, and that's why people selling product hate me, because I just said that.
But no, that's how I run my game, and I sell product. But I but the thing is too, though, I will use like modules and stuff. Like if I find my use in modules like not how they're written, and I write my modules very much as like they're not modules, they're like toolkits. Like here's a map and some encounters and some stuff. So like if your players run off somewhere and it's not where you expected, you can craft something around it. But I'm not a fan of like read this description to players and it's like some cringy description in italic text. I don't do that kind of stuff. That's not how I prep my games either. So, but I think that's cool. I feel like that's how players get the buy-in into the game, is because.
Authoritative News Network says, good way to keep Fog of War. That reminds me, I need to send a notice to my patrons. Not my Patreon patrons, which you can find me at patreon.com/LatinusRude, but engage pulse. Yes. Uh-oh. Oh, come on. Yeah, we'll get to that. I need to inform them that the quote patron game of Chilmus Valley is not restarting, but going into full swing on July 2nd. And the reason I mention this is the Fog of War. I'm actually not all that concerned with them seeing each other's troop movements and stuff like that. If they're worried about putting it in chat, they should spoiler it. But I might even restrict that. I think securing their position as being associate DMs rather than just a slight reminder that they're all still playing a game, and like, yeah, looking at the co-op position on your buddy, looking at your buddy's position on a Halo map when you're doing like split screen PvP might not be the most exciting thing in the world. You might feel like they're getting an unfair advantage. It's possible they could be when it comes to doing domains and warfare in 5th edition. That's fine. It's basically fine. I don't know. That's what I'm thinking.
They know that their decisions matter. They know that when they go somewhere, they're discovering something, like legitimately discovering something. And it's been hard to explain this to people because I run a sandbox style game, and I give my players free reign to go wherever they want to go and do whatever they want to do, within the confines of the rules of the game. And it's fun. It's hard to. I agree. It's hard to explain to people. Especially people that really are tied to this. I have to tell my story as a DM, and they don't. It just doesn't click for them. I feel like, but yeah, I've had stuff arise at the table that's been way more interesting than I could have written.
No, it's like the multiple variables. Nothing is independent in a fantasy world. Everything in the campaign world, when it's run this way, sort of subtly influences everything else and informs everything else. And then they're like little. They're when you have things in the game that emerge organically in the game, interacting with other things that emerged organically in the game, and that are interacting with things that happen under a fog of war. There's a realness, there's a verisimilitude to it, and it's really satisfying to see it happen. You can't make it happen as a referee, but.
For GoldenEye and Perfect Dark split screen, we used to put up a giant piece of cardboard bisecting the TV, propped up by couch cushions. Yeah, I did that too. God bless. Kids these days,
even
they don't know.
Ways, like
they don't know what we had to go through.
This is a really low example, very simple example, but I made a room that was the monster bathroom. It was like, I tell the players, oh, it smells really bad. They're like, oh, it's the monster bathroom. Like you don't have to describe anything. Like the players immediately know what you're doing. and so I thought it was just it was like a gag to me. It was like, oh, the monster bathroom. And so they go into the next room, and there's like this troll, and the players all run away, but the henchmen got a surrender for their morale check, and so I ruled like oh yeah, the henchmen are like an alien when that one girl is like just petrified with fear and they can't shoot the flamethrower at it because she's in the way. So that's your henchman, and they run off, and we look at the movement rate.
Guess
of
I
the
can't
party,
run
and
into
this 15-year-old kid, he had a movement rate of six inches, and everybody else was fast enough to escape. I did the math. I'm like, okay, you guys actually can get out of the dungeon before the troll gets you. I didn't use the word troll. They never found out that it was troll unless they guessed. But the kid was like, oh, I dive into the monster bathroom. So like it was subtle. One person wasn't going to get out. I have a dumb idea for a room. The players are in a typical snafu, and then a solution to a problem that I never even thought of. I didn't even know it was going to happen. It was right there as if I had designed it. So
Yeah, that's cool. I got another super chat here. I want to try to get through some of these because these people are kind enough to send them. So for $2, again, Alchemic Raker. This sounds like top tier pulp fantasy adventure. I think this is referring back to the sorceress scenario that you were talking about.
Oh, that was a great session. That was absolutely.
This kind of ties into one of my gripes, my personal gripes, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. And then Brian James here said, coffee, rock climbing, and campaign creation.
It's not a lot, and not a lot of people have articulated how it works. But like what I'm seeing right now, where I've got face-to-face group and an online group, and I've got a guy that plays in both, and I've got things that are happening. The things are happening between the two parties where the stakes are pretty high and feelings could get hurt. And based on what I've seen of this, if the communication time, to get a consensus between the two groups so that you as a referee can like move something forward. That's a very time-intensive thing, and with the clock ticking, as we've described throughout the show, you don't have time to hold every single person's hands when you've got a time pressure or a key event that is happening in time. And what I've thought as I've gone through this, of course I'm doing it the slow way, holding everybody's hand, because I want everybody to have confidence in the results and not feel like I'm just being arbitrary. I want people to feel like it's fair. But if we did a lot of this, and if this happened like every month, ideally I would want a single point of contact with both parties. And I'd be like, okay, we already know you're the leader of this particular constellation of players. You get the consensus and just tell me the plan. And same for you over here in this other group. I just don't have time to talk to every single person. And so the caller, I would say, is more important in this type of game.
Yeah, this gets into more logistical
when
concerns.
we're just more relaxed.
Okay. So let's see here. It goes for another 40 minutes. There's one last thing that I wanted to, if I find the proper timestamp, I'll be fascinated.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And that old saw about the butterfly wings will affect emerging. That
you're leaving or you're ending for the night, leave the dungeon, go back to town. And so even if you're like in a very small like hex.
And same for you over here in this other group. I just don't have time to talk to every single person. And so the caller, I would say, is more important in this type of game than we tend to when we're just more relaxed.
Okay. Here's a older one from Diversity and Dragons. I wanted to make sure I get to it. So why is a changing world exclusively tied to this style of play? Isn't that DMing 101?
You'd think so, but it isn't.
Whoa.
This is important as far as questions go, because a lot of times when you discuss rules and the more hardline stances of the Pro-SR, the discussion of exocraft. Maybe I do want to buy that. Anyways, when you get into the discussion of some of the more hardline stances of the Pro-SR, and why we discuss the things that we do, why we demand that you use one-to-one time, as opposed to just really strictly looking at your calendar and making sure that when you write down the date of when a session begins and when another session ends, you dot your T's and cross your I's. Why we insist you use rules which are consistent across tables is so that we can ensure. Why is that loading? It should not be loading. Yeah, it's not that common of a GM skill. because the primary point of interest, of course. Gosh, I better not be. Yeah, I'm still transmitting. There's just something. There's just something wrong with YouTube on one of my ends, but no worries, I guess. The reason we take such a ridiculous, you could say, hardline stance on this. Oh, I should definitely be selling this stuff. I have no reason to keep it around. Get out of here. Mining Beam module, I already have that. Screw it. That, maybe I should keep. I'm not used to dogfighting, so I better keep it around. Anyways, it's not a common GM skill. Maybe it should be. I disagree. I think the rules set as it is presented should provide you with a default capacity to, just by following the rule set, to engage with the game, to engage with a living world, as it's commonly called, a breathing world, something that's ongoing. You guys still see me? I think y'all can still see me. Yeah, it looks like it was just an issue on my end. Cool. Anyways. We're gonna sell this shit. Absolutely. Everybody have cool ships in here? Cool ships for me to buy? That looks like a cockpit on a dildo. Ooh, that's pretty hot though. Anyways. Rano says, yeah, living campaign is something that takes GMs much longer to learn than just doing one-to-one time with Braunsteins. But here's the thing. It's so much easier if you have the Braunstein. It's so much easier if you have one-to-one time. Trade. Let's see here. Can I recruit you to a squadron? I have a squadron? Since when do I have a squadron? What the hell is this? So much new stuff. What's a man to do? Jeez. Anyways, I should sell some of the junk starships I have in my inventory. Got no reason to keep them around. Yeah. So the reason we get so upset, the reason we get so uppity about making sure that you follow the damn rules, as opposed to just trusting that you're at some point going to get it on your own, is because we're relatively certain that you're just not going to get it on your own. And you're not going to do it consistently. You're not going to do it in a way that allows other players at your table to switch between tables and have consistent expectations. Or, what is this? Miasmic planet? Shattered planet? I go to the Shattered planet. What the hell is that thing? I know what that one is. People take pride in ignoring the rules these days. Yeah, that's sort of the main issue, is people get so excited about all the things they can do if they ignore the rules. And like, no, that's not the point of that. The idea is we want something which is universal, which the players know is fair and not arbitrary, not up to DM fiat. I already know that you can make decisions that produce events on the game. Okay? That's not special. You're not special for inventing that. What I find interesting is rule sets that I can enjoy with almost without, not necessarily without your input. I don't want to say that. It's not about doing it without your input. It's about gold, silver, and platinum. Maybe I should go. It's like, it's not as cool, it's not as interesting to me that you can do that, because anybody can change up the rules, anybody can invent cool new ways of, hypothetically, tracking time on a calendar. It's like, no, the reason we use one-to-one time is because it's consistent. Everybody knows that the day is changing. Everybody is well aware. Insufficient fuel. Alright, I thought I had a problem. Oh well.
Technology recharge.
Everybody's aware that, like, it's of, like, when the day changes. So that's why, I mean, I did have one player this morning have an issue with this and not quite understand it, but who cares? That's fine. We'll get over it. Or not, and I'll just get another player. The reason we use these rules is procedures. Vic gets it right. Again, procedures. The idea that we have some kind of consistency to all of this is ideal. It lets us take advantage of opportunities that we wouldn't have if we were just constantly making things up on the fly. The focus of the game is not to make things up on the fly. The focus of the game is not to make up rules systems on the fly. The focus of the game is to make up content on the fly. Okay? Stuff I can game through on the fly. That's fun. That's entertaining. That's preferable insofar as the game is concerned. What is not preferable, what is not entertaining, what is not produce an experience that I couldn't get from video games. God, what a pretty planet for something being so rocky and barren. Oh yeah, that's interesting. Alright. What's this stuff? Well, it's mine now. What do I need? Ferrite dust? I did need ferrite dust. What do I need ferrite dust for? I can't remember. Oh, no, I need it for personal shielding. That's fine. Metal. Jeez, this planet, this entire star system is just everything I need in one big ball. Having a coherent set of rules and adhering to them generates a sense of challenge and achievement. I would broadly agree with that. I think that D&D is... I would constitute that D&D with rules, much like Doom with rules, as opposed to Doom with cheats or D&D with cheats, is more gratifying when you produce a fun, enjoyable experience for your players. When people tell you that was fun and you do it by the rules, I feel like that's in some way more valuable than an experience you might have by cheating. Yeah, I'll use the word cheating. Critter over there. What kind of critter? What the hell are you? It's a box. Just a living box. Hey, buddy. Can I feed you? I guess I can. Cannot adopt, companion, register full. That's bullshit. Why not? I don't want a stupid thing that gives me honey and is made of eyes. I want the box. Creatures. Companion register. I can do that for 500 nanites? That's good. That's good. Alright, cool. You're mine now. Yuri is my little box companion. Look at him. He's such a good boy. I'll gently pat him again. I'll give him another treat too. Why not? Anyways, let's get back to the What do we have a
I think
box?
it just sounds like it's sure you can have a DM that's going to change the world and decide things that happen.
You're a little close, buddy.
This just is a different, in my opinion, from what I'm
think
hearing.
you
Observing, it's
need
just a different path to that same goal.
Right. What we're doing when we talk. Oh no, you go ahead, Victor.
Oh, well, from the way I understood it, from how you explained one-on-one time, and how it like it changed the world. Like it also does it for kind of like smaller scale adventures, especially when you've got the understanding that you're leaving or you're ending for the night, leave the dungeon, go back to town, and so even if you're like in a very small like hex, just doing everything in like a couple mile radius, with one-on-one time, like stuff will still like will change and progress. Well, if you're just in a normal game, if you're pausing stuff constantly, you might go weeks and like 2 hours have passed like in game time. If you know what I mean. So,
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Okay, for you all that are playing conventional D&D, how often have you used the instructions on page 104 and 105 of the DMG, where Gygax talks about how monsters will respond to the activities of
I suddenly
players
heard my
in the
box
campaign?
animal because a dumbass and ran
that's
straight
point
into my
A.
mind.
Point B on this topic is we are setting up model fantasy worlds where we have independent parts operating
Stop it, buddy. I don't want to hurt.
with no knowledge of everything else that's in the game world. What this is, if you know anything about recent history of mathematics, or even if you've read
It's a
Jurassic
box.
Park, you should know this. When you set up a model with these multiple independent actions,
Yes, I
get
understand.
chaos.
Yes.
Chaos Theory?
yes you do, yes you do.
Something hurt you again. I'm trying.
And that old saw about the butterfly wings will affect what's on the other.
Yeah.
It's true. You'll see it happen in the
fucking
game,
believe it.
and it's like,
Okay.
wow, this thing happened over here, and it led to this, and it led to this, and it led to this, and it actually impacted this big battle that we're playing out on the other side of the map. I'm sorry, I don't think this happens. Well, we'll contrast this with there's a term, the clockwork god DM. Like, I've thought up all this stuff. I'm not smart enough to think of a fantasy world, I'm just not. I'm not that creative. But like, if I've got people coming to my game, I've got this idea, I've got this idea, I've got this idea. Well, we put them all together, and what happens when you do that? Well, you get a game of diplomacy immediately. All these people are going to be talking to everybody else. All these things that you put into the stone soup, right? Like, who am I trying to do? What do I want to do? Who am I going to game up on? And then they're making plans against each other. And then you're getting the orders from these plans, and then things are happening all over the map. That's what Road'em was. That's what my July game was. And people were asking us like, what's the prep for that? People were asking Krasova, P. Alexander, like, tell us how you did that. How did you do that? And he released like, okay, here's all the details for the United Cape Federation, and it was literally just a month anyway. That was his faction. Like we built all everything. It's sort of the reverse of a Potemkin village, right? like we have like the worst prep, the worst maps, the worst everything, but somehow we're shaping out of like this totally seat of the pants deal with people like talking smack on Twitter the whole time. Like we're actually getting like
Rasmus has a very interesting praise Primus. Yes, thank you. I found with new players started with 5e strangely stick to the rules better than most, which is weird because there's like 100 variant or optional rules. This is true. I've never had an issue with 5th edition players when it came to, especially telling them about one-to-one time. I have, the only player that I really have an issue with at the moment is somebody who's like maybe a little bit too excited to like go over specific rules, and like they're giving me, I don't know this for certain, but when you run for a certain number of people, like you just get a sense for these things where you think, this person's like looking for ways to like maybe get around the rules, or they're really obsessed with what they think the rules to be. Like the kind of, not necessarily a metagamer, but like maybe the kind of metagamer who's like bad at it, right? Those kinds of vibes. But pretty much everybody else, and I posted a screenshot of this on Twitter, was like one of the players coming up and be like, yeah, I want to do, let's hear, my character is 8 days ahead, or 7 days ahead in the in-game calendar, because I played last night. Is there a way for me to play, tonight? And I was like, yeah, sure there is. All you gotta do is... I'm full. Okay, this can be fixed. What kind of stuff do we need in here that we, Can I transfer this stuff to my starship? I don't think I can. They're like, yeah, can we do this stuff? And I'm like, yeah, sure. All I need you to do, really, is, what was that noise? All I need you to do is make a new character. Because right now your players are off in an adventure further in the in-game calendar than when the next adventure is happening. All you gotta do is make a new character and you'll be able to play in tonight's session. And they wanted to play in tonight's session, and you know what they did? They made a new character. Because it's fucking easy and it takes no goddamn time. And everybody who told me that it was impossible or caused failure to launch campaigns or resulted in people not having a good time, all those people were lying. They were stupid, they were lying, they encountered something that they had not played before, that they didn't know about, that they knew, in fact, nothing about, and couldn't be relied upon to make any intelligent comments on it. But they did anyways, because they were trying to sabotage other people's games. In other words, these people were too stupid to enter the conversation, but they did it anyways. How do I get these? Did these make it into my inventory, but they're just, like, bugged? Is that what's happening right now? Albumin pearls. I feel like, that might be the case, actually. Screw it, go check it out. Anyways.
Fairly complex events emerging that cause everyone involved to just be hanging on every single development coming out. Gygax says in the forward to the DMG that what I'm going to describe to you here is going to be the most entertaining game for the most people for the longest period of time possible. Based on our testing and based on what we're hearing from people that are trying it, I think this is objectively correct, and it's the way this works is head and shoulders above conventional play. Conventional play owes me an apology because it is a fake game. It doesn't work. It leads directly to the 6-session game that you guys bully people about for 5e. It's actually all in the rules. Everything I did when I was a teenager, I didn't have to struggle with this. If somebody had given me how to win at D&D when I was 12, it would have changed my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, see, I've never used one-on-one time because I'm a more, like, I started with a Shadow one and stuff like that, and it's not really a concern and stuff like that. So, but I could see, like, how it would force you to think about the living world, so to speak. And I could see it also being very useful on a more macro level, where, like I said, like, on a very small scale, it still works. Like, because, when you're pausing constantly, if you're just pausing in a dungeon, like I said, a month could go by, and you have, like, 6 sessions in that dungeon, and meanwhile, in-game, like, 2 hours have passed. So there's not really much of a living world.
Yeah, Nerd Cognito just had a show. He just had a guy on a show. I don't recall the guy's name. I know somebody in the chat watched it, but he was talking about how when he played Vampire, that the guy taught him, always end your sessions on cliff. And they were really excited about this. And then here's the counterintuitive thing I'm going to say. I'm going to say no, don't do this because the ending back in town, keeping every adventure sort of a discrete unit, where you can move the calendar forward. We've got in Trolomulus right now, I'm going to say 20 people that are watching things in the game that are concerned about it. Like we've got some dragon eggs that are going to be force grown into dragons to be used in a big fight with a bunch of ogres and trolls and hill giants. And every day that passes, like people are biting their nails. the tension that you get from this day-to-day steady drip of development is way more exciting and engaging than the I can't wait till next Thursday when I'm going to see same bat time, same bat channel, the next installment of my DM's grand adventure. There's just no comparison.
That sounds cool. That sounds fun. It's just a different mode of play than, I'm interested. You got a lot of people, they're interested in trying it here.
They won't leave me alone. Like I run more games than I want to because people are clamoring to have a game, which is for a DM. That's probably the best problem you will ever have.
We got Rex Steel 1 here. Says, question for Jeffro. So from what I'm hearing, Jeffro is basically saying to just allow the game mechanics to run the world for you, and the DM interprets it.
You're a referee. You are not God. You're just a referee. The AD&D rules.
Not a clockwork god either, mind you.
The foundation and the physics of a kind of world that is very suited to this type of gaming. You don't need to do near as much work as you think you do.
Yeah, I view myself as a ref because I want to be fair, and I've said this before on stream and in my videos and stuff like that. Like I want players to feel like it's them versus the rules and not them versus me. And I feel like if they feel like it's them versus me, it's this asymmetric warfare thing that as the referee, as the one who is running the world, I have a lot more power than they do. Like they're not going to win. Like I essentially have almost infinite resources at my disposal, and they have what's on their character sheet and what they've done. And so it's not fair. So it has to be, in my opinion, it has to be them versus the rules and not them versus me.
Right. And bringing the Bronstein into it, I'm only so creative. Well, a group of players is collectively smarter than me in every way. I can't. There's some players who are so have such mastery of the game that I literally can't challenge. Macho Mandoff is that person. So I think when you embrace Mephrodis's commission to strive for RPG mastery, it creates a problem that most DMs haven't had to face. And as the sort of I have the minus 18 chaw, the minus 18 charisma compared to John Lawson and V-Dub's 18 charisma. I'm the other extreme. I'm not as smart as guys like Macho Mandoff and Falker. I'm just not to the depth as refereeing. So what the Bronstein does for me as the not God DM, the not genius person, it allows me to find ways to introduce challenges in the game that draw on player creativity and player interaction and player versus player type stuff that create way more interest than anything else I can just make up on my own.
Got a compliment here from Lord Mateus. Oh, where'd it go?
I had thought earlier. I'm not necessarily. There's only one kind of creature on this planet, and it is, if you can believe it, just the box. Anyway. Yeah, but seriously, how do I get extra slots for? It's got to be in the escape menu. How do I get the head of fauna? Catalog and guide. Surely it's over here. Anyways. Hufose says gonna have to battle for now. Battery's getting low. Yeah, that's fine, buddy.
There's a lot of GM humility in this style of gaming. To me, it's like this is again the problem I think with how the hobby, how the concept of the game into a conventional, what you term conventional D&D, has sort of evolved, where it's you're not. You see these terms used for a referee, for a DM that's like a narrator, a storyteller. I'm a world weaver and a world builder and all these, you know. I'm a world forger and all these like terms, and it's like I don't know. You're just, to me, you're setting yourself up for frustration, because once the players enter that, it's going to go to hell. Which it should. Like, that's the fun of it. Like, for me, and I try and explain this to people that don't understand, this kind of seat of the pants kind of gaming. Oh. And it's to me, the fun of it is really me ripping off the players, and then the players ripping off of me, and us just going back and forth and having fun, and just seeing what kind of stuff happens. Like, it becomes, it's a lot of fun. And stuff has happened where, in my games, I think similar to yours, where they did things that I would never expect. Like, in one of my games, they came across a tribe of 2 tribes of like orcs, and they started a civil war between the two, and like it caused this whole battle within the lair that they were sharing, because they pinned a murder on another orc from the other tribe, and then they swept in and like and picked off the survivors, because it was a brutal battle, and to me, that was like something I didn't expect. I was just like, oh, okay, you want to do that? Okay, well then this happens, and then this happens. And it was way more interesting than if let's just go room by room and kick in doors and, oh, look, we got a TPK.
That right there, when Arnes's group played their war games, the idea was, okay, as commander for your side, you can do anything you can imagine. You want to send your cavalry over here, the referee could handle it. If there was no rules for that in Strategos in, whenever everybody talks in RPGs, and even the Serious works on it, like Rule 0 gets lifted up as this, wow, this is this great thing. You can change all the rules, but the point is, the reason that the rules are not the same as in a board game is in order to facilitate the ability for the people at the table to do anything they can imagine. And I feel like in the way that Rule 0 is followed and embraced, I feel like it's just not pitched that way. It's not pitched that way of like, oh, the reason the referee is going to make up something on the spot is because no rule set could ever cover what's happening at the table right now. Like, that's just not the way that seems to be more the spirit of it, rather than this, oh yeah, just throw it all out, raise the hit dice on the feet, change their skills, change the way they work.
I got something for you. Every time. Yep. But no, yeah, it's there to. I love watching my players like solve problems. That I love making problems or having problems just naturally arise based on what they're doing, and then they solve them. And like, I don't have a solution. It's like, I don't know what the solution.
No, you just dump stuff on them and
like I don't know what it is. Like, but they figure it out. They're smart. They have fun with it. So, that to me, that's part of the fun of being the referee, being the DM. And then I think my players have fun with it too, because they know they legitimately overcame something, they conquered something, that there was real risk involved too.
That's the other place where watching D&D just completely screwed up is when you're playing these games, players love high risk, high reward, where they come up with a plan that does make something really ridiculously awesome happen. Like if they do something that really they shouldn't be able to do, or if they see the DM like just burying his head and my adventure is completely ruined, they love that. They don't want balance. They want to be able to do anything they can imagine, and if they see an opportunity to just like defeat an entire army by being stupid, and they're gonna out stupid everyone.
So I have a question. So you wrote your book on the Appendix N. That's like a big thing for the Bozar. Obviously, I'm an avid reader myself, even though some people don't believe that for some reason. But see, when I game, I want to be like in a version of Langmar. I want to be in a version of the Hyborian Age. I want to like play in games that are based.
They're gonna be so.
That's not where we're supposed to go. Give it just a moment, folks.
So, you wrote your book on the Appendix N. That's like a big thing for the Bozar. Obviously, I'm an avid reader myself.
The reason I clicked over on this was because Jeff was about to explain a point, that I sometimes sort of disagree with him on, but haven't really cared to discuss with anybody in the. Oh, haven't really cared to discuss with him. What the hell is this guy talking about? I mean, cargo manifest. Well, if he wants to do business, who am I to say no? That sounds like a fun time that I have no reason to not do at all. Oh, jeez, I didn't know how expensive those were. Anyways, the idea behind like stuff like Brovenloft and I guess a little bit of Dubs-Aaron when it comes to a little bit of Dubs-Aaron when it comes to like, you know, all right, well we have puppets. There are puppets that are that exist and are doing things. There are puppets which exist and are doing things in the world that we are, you know, interacting with. It's kind of interesting. It's kind of fun to play around with. It's a little weird sometimes. I don't know. I don't know how to react to it sometimes. Sometimes I feel like, oh, we're not supposed to be. I feel like we're not supposed to be doing this. I feel like we're screwing ourselves over by like playing around with Muppets. Like I've done something wrong and that I should be ashamed of it. But at the end of the day, it's in all likelihood it's probably fine. That's a lot of marrow bulbs. How do I have so many? What the hell? Alright, we're definitely getting rid of the rusted metal, so I have no reason to keep that around. Dinner for this and this. I could get more of that stuff elsewhere. I don't need to keep it around. I have a whole planet full of that shit. Oh, platinum I should be keeping around. Flesh to felt is a powerful dwemer. Yeah, buddy. Alright. Alright, and who am I to argue with, who am I to argue with that? I can't imagine why I would. I find myself convinced I should just get rid of this gold. There's not doing anything in my inventory. That's just taking up a slot for... I don't need radon free either. Creature pellets, I mean, I have a number of ways of expending them, so I'm not going to worry about that either. But... Cobalt... Yeah, we'll keep that stuff on. Anyways, thanks, buddy. I enjoyed having the money. The whole reason I was coming to this place over here was to get money and, like, alleviate my overflowing inventory, so I guess now I don't need to do that. But yeah, so they're about to discuss the gonzo or silly elements.
Though some people don't believe that for some reason. But see, when I game, I want to be like in a version of Langmar. I want to be in a version of the Hyperborean Age. I want to like play in games that are based on the books that I read. So my question is, what's with the weird gonzo joke worlds? Like, what's with Trollopolis and shit like that? Like, why harp on the Appendix N when your world...
Ronos, that question is about to come up in a second.
If I'm gaming, I don't want to run into a muscle wizard called Dildo Swaggins, because that completely takes me out of the game. I want to be the Grey Mouser, you know, with the fucking... different name, the serial numbers filed off. So, and you know, there's not really as a criticism, but it's just something I always wondered.
First off, Trollopolis was Langmar. It was literally, you know, when I started, it was like I realized I was reading like Swords in the Mist at the time, and it was like because like it was no, it was Swords in the Mist because it had a very short story with Electrum, and it had harlots and everything that people complain about, the city encounters. You know, it was like,
I don't know what that is, but
you can go outside at night and like the gods of Langmar will be walking down the street, right? So no, like why lean into the crazy
rusted metal?
You know, like look, when you played video games when you were a kid and you could enter your name, did you put a serious name?
Have you picking this up?
You know, no, you know when you played when you were a kid, you played a wizard named Cheese Whiz.
Yeah, that is true, but I was 12. We're what, like in our 30s, 40s, 50s? Right. Come on. That's Grey Mouser. I don't want to be Dildo Swaggins.
Well, To be fair,
look, if players create things, if you allow players to create things, then it's going to be stupid.
That is true.
I couldn't. I had one rule. This is one frustration with this. I got over it. In 2020, all the demi-humans were changelings, and they grew up in Trollopolis, and they most of them lived lives of prostitution and other forms of humiliation. And the players who wanted to play demi-humans did not have the same resources as the human players. Thief didn't even have a thieves guild to get training at. I found out later it was because Trollopolis didn't have a thieves guild, had an assassin's guild. But anyways, I had that one idea, which of course was taken from Paul Anderson. Is where that came from. The broken sword was, and Lord Dunsany as well. And we ran with that. We had gags about it. It was every time the players were in Trollopolis, we would have jokes about it. And every character that got created, as soon as I stepped out of the game, that went through the window. So, and people wanted to play multi-classed demi-humans, and that's there was no dwarvish or elvish in the campaign.
It was a good rant
because they were changelings and had no relationship with any kind of like demi-human culture. So I feel your pain, Vic.
Yeah.
Trollopolis in 2020
Yeah.
was very, very Appendix N heavy. Opar in the north was out of Tarzan, of course, and the Mountains of Madness in the south. There was the Undead Quarter, which was taken from the Clark Ashton Smith story about necromancers, and the leader of Trollopolis was Prince Elric, from Michael Moorcock's books, and so literally the whole setting at the time throughout 2020 was a silly but pretty tight conglomerate of first-rate Appendix N type material. But yeah, when you have players become movers and shakers, then you're stuck with you're stuck with Macho Mandolph.
I'm kind of a dictator when stuff comes like that. I put my foot down. It's like I made the setting. You fucking better follow the conventions of that setting. No dildo swaggins, motherfucker. But also somebody asked, what were your mod characters called? Victor Gordon?
I have a pretty similar rule for this as Victor, but you probably wouldn't expect it to be as it is. My rule for my setting is no A names. You are not allowed to create a character whose name starts with A. And I have always, this is the most common question that I get insofar as the character creation rules for Chilmus Valley, or indeed anything else that I develop, is why can't I use this character type? And my answer is relatively consistent, which is, hey, A names are lazy. You just came up with something that you decided to invent, like, on the fly. Something's awfully close. So no A names. None. Not allowed. It's dumb. Your A names are dumb. They're stupid. You came up with them in like 2 seconds. You smashed together the first letter of... You couldn't make it past the first letter of the alphabet when you were deciding which syllables to smash together to come up with your fantasy character's name. Okay? You should be ashamed of yourself. You're not allowed to do it in my campaign. That's right, it's Enos the Barbarian, as opposed to the alternative that the potential alternative we were discussing. I will stand by that decision. Very technology module. That's pretty cool. I guess I could take this part. Anyways, I would just always see Jeffro talk about the importance of Appendix N in one tweet, then next he'd be like, so anyways, Macho Mandolf did this today. He fought the Count from Sesame Street. No, so I get that. I understand why that's weird to people, okay? To be quite frank with you, it's weird to me. Like, I came up with a fantasy setting. It's important to me. I wrote a book in it. I wrote a comic in it. It's really important to me. So when folks... I guess it's just a machine that gives me money. So when folks... It's not that when folks take it unseriously, I'm upset with them. It's that when folks give me the idea that they're like... When folks give me the sense that I'm not allowed to take something seriously, I find myself annoyed with it, okay? That's my... Why can I not destroy this thing that is, like, very clearly dealing me damage for, like, no murder reason? Let me murder. Let me kill it. I deserve that.
Chef, that's literally where the name is from. So yeah, no gut chef for you there.
Well, from what I understand too, there's other Brostar guys running games, and theirs are maybe a little more serious, right? Like,
yeah.
They're from what I hear. Is that true?
From what I know, no.
Yeah, no, that was always just a personal little disconnect for me, because I would see you guys, like, you know, lecture people about Appendix N, and then the next post, and anyway, Macho Mandolf did this today, and I'm like, come on, like, I'm just throwing my hands up.
No, well, like, I'm going to defend it, because what happened was, I had the best players in 2020, literally the best. They all had read Appendix N. They had all read lots of Appendix N books, and they were like chomping at the bit to play all of that. Because when we started, it was like Appendix N is what's going to make us have a good D&D game. Because obviously, I wrote the book that proved that already. So of course it's going to be good. We found out different things, of course, but
what the hell else?
But no, they were hilarious. I would try to be serious, and they would be cracking jokes, and then the jokes would like become part of the world, and then I would just I would keep running with their jokes, and then we would have like a new person come into the game, and I'd be explaining stuff from the game, and like there was stuff like I thought of it as a game, but when because we had like been immersed in it, and when I told the new person all this stuff, like. Like they just crack up constantly. Like all the jokes get to be funny all over again.
Yeah.
And we had this guy John Rock, and read all of those session reports in the 2020 game, and he showed up this year and was like,
let's see. There's a few comments there. Red Frontier, I think, is more grounded, and the one Fall of Ur is from. And the one Fall of Ur is from is pretty serious too. Yeah. No, it is. Ditto for. Let's see here. Looking at a few, I feel like I missed a question too. But no, there's that again, it's snuck in there. So, there are a number of, I would say, more serious games, but here's the thing about serious gaming. There's a actual play channel, I shouldn't say series, an actual play channel, which is, I think it's fantastic. It's one of the best out there. It's as good as Critical Role, and I actually think that Critical Role, I deviate from everybody else. I think that Critical Role is actually kind of cool. Of Dimension 20, and the person who DMs the most often on Dimension 20, a fellow named Brandon Lee Mulligan, of College Humor fame, has commented quite a bit about, yeah, what am I supposed to do here? Exactly. Yeah, I found the merchant. What am I supposed to do with them? I'm supposed to say hi, that's what. Okay. Sure. Okay, that's what that does. Or just upgrade them. Yeah. So the idea, I feel like some of the stuff is pretty cool. It's just I don't have all that much of a use for it. But yeah, so Choma's Valley is pretty serious. Okay. So the Dimensions 1 tangent. The idea that this guy took from gaming and decided that he was going to like make use of when he was gaming was the idea that he would take a premise that was funny, right? Hogwarts, but it's a bunch of like horny teenagers who like curse and stuff like that, or it's D&D, but something I don't know. I don't actually know. They would take an inherently funny or comedic premise, right? And they would take it, instead of taking something serious and being funny about it and cracking jokes all the time, they would take a funny premise and they would take it super seriously, right? They would take Hogwarts, but like adults, like R-rated Hogwarts, okay? R-rated Harry Potter. And take it super seriously. And it made it, one, funnier and more entertaining. That's kind of what the BroSR does, right? It's a style that's uncommon because I feel like most people's instinct is to do like the Joss Whedon thing, where you take situations that are supposed to be, serious, and you make them funny. Like, oh, this guy's going to destroy a planet. I'm going to challenge him to a dance battle. Oh, isn't this so ironic? And kitschy, and I don't know. It makes you cringe now because it's everywhere. But what if you take something like dancing or something nonsensical? Like, I don't know, maybe the Yakuza games? I don't know enough about them to, like, say this confidently. But you take something that's super funny inherently, like a school wizard duel, and you take it absurdly seriously. Alright, so I have to install a plasma launcher. I feel like I already had that. Amino chamber. I don't know how to make that thing. Nor do I have the recipe for it, or the blueprint. Maybe I can find the blueprint over here, but you get the idea. Hollyfeld makes some BroSR videos, or made some BroSR videos. I actually haven't encountered their channel content. There's not a lot of BroSR guys on
to play it Roundup.
YouTube, aside from myself, John Mollison, who is of course the originator, and there's also Purple Druid, who does a lot of wargaming content. I wish he had more subscribers. I feel like you guys should go subscribe to him. In fact, I'm going to go look up his channel now. YouTube.com/ let's see here. Oh, this is fantastic. Go ahead and take ages to load you. Purple Druid. Am I gonna find? Yeah, Purple Druid presents Wargame Culture. He has 404 subscribers. I'm gonna pin him in the chat anyway. How to win at D&D immediately lends itself to a comic book. Hey Edwin, buddy, BroSR needs his own PvP style comic or comic strip that would elevate the marketing to the next level. Contact me about this. Okay? If you're willing to like drop this into the mainstream, I'm gonna replace pin message so you guys can go subscribe to him because it's a lot of fun. If you would be down to work on a project like that, please inform me because I think it would be a lot of fun.
He's the one person who is the opposite of you, Victor. And so he comes in, and I think the guys from last year were more fluent in AD&D and hewed closer to the rules and the implied setting of the AD&D game, rather than the stupid stuff that we were doing in 2020. That's going to hurt some feelings, but that's just my opinion. And so we had this guy come back in who was like completely immersed, fluent. He was telling me jokes I had forgotten, and he played in that style. And I feel like, and he's also, a key component of what I thought was the best session from the dungeon phase, and he's also a key component of the best interactions that are going on in downtime. So I'm going to say, from a gameplay standpoint, from creating a better, more enjoyable campaign, that letting go of the po-faced fantasy setting stuff and going with the humor, it's better in practice, even though it's offensive to a certain strain of persons.
No, see, if that's what it turns into, if that's what I get told, that's the game from the get-go, I'm all for it. But like I said, my disconnect was like all the Twitter talk about Appendix N, and if you like follow the conventions of Appendix N, you just have a better game. And then like none of the games that I was hearing about were Appendix N; they were just some nonsense.
Well, I mean,
that's the most hurtful thing anybody's ever said.
Well, fun nonsense, obviously, but
to be fair, like, you know, like in Artisan's group, you know, you had Greg Svensson, he's like the great Svenny. You know,
Yeah.
they had
yeah,
some,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, that's true.
And the egg of Coot is like
Yeah.
one of the weirdest things I've ever read about. I wish I was still friends with Griff so he could explain it to me some more.
Well, to me, it's like, you know, if I'm saying like, oh yeah, your games need to be like John Wick, and then like when I actually run my game, like everyone's like a killer clown with machine guns in their shoes, like you know.
Let's see here. We got any more questions here? We had a question from Likely Arrow. He said, "Did Ravenloft fall apart, or is it still going?" But and then I think Dueling Dragon said, "Is this true here too?" As far as he knows, it didn't fall apart. It was always meant to be a short-term Halloween thing.
That was we have done 3 month-long Bronstein events. The first was mine, where I like where these came from was I was looking at all the stuff in D&D that I'd never played and didn't know anybody that had played, and B, in chainmail, there is half a sentence in the chainmail rules saying that, oh yeah, if you want to run a campaign with this, you can. And it was like, so my question was like, why was it so obvious to Gygax how to run a campaign and so baffling to me? I don't understand this. The third piece of the puzzle was in Blackmoor, the first dungeon module-like thing. If you compare it to the first fantasy campaign, which was published by Judges Guild, you'll see that an adventure location existed as a faction-level element in a war game. And also, of course, if you read it in the first fantasy campaign as well, or watch the Blackmoor film, you can see that in the Blackmoor games, there was a war game going on in parallel with dungeon adventuring. And that the two had sort of a feedback loop on each other, or influenced each other in a variety of ways. So I took all of that, and I took.
Random22 says, it sounds like Brovenloft will return, which is a horrifying concept in and of itself. That's okay. While that is true, I better answer this. While that is true, I'm excited because I wanted to do something last year that I wasn't able to because I went homeless, okay? You understand? I went homeless because my dumbass roommate. And what happened, what I wanted to do was run Van Helvis, okay? I wanted to join in on the Gonzo. I wanted to run Van Helsing, but if he was Elvis. And I never got to. But with the return of Brovenloft, at last, if I just have enough time, I can manage this. I think it would be fun. I think it would be fun for everybody. Okay? And I'm confident in my
patron
decision.
concept, which Chanticleer was experimenting it with his 5e Waterdeep game. And I created the first BroSR Bronstein. It lasted a month, and of course I famously burned out at that point. So I never thought anybody would do anything with that again. It was just too out there. It was literally what I did was that I was like, oh, if we have all these downtime actions, what if we just did away with sessions entirely? Like, can we run a game like that? You know, and of course we could. Brovenloft was completely different. Brovenloft was something much, much more. It took that idea that I had proved the concept for, and it did some things some rather unsettling things, also some rather innovative things. But it started with a land grab. Well, it started with a joke, Victor. It started with a joke that was so funny that everybody simply had to play it. And the joke was, what if Ravenloft? What if all the monster domains in Ravenloft were turned on at the same time? And so people started like joking about what monster faction they would play in that type of game. And the idea was to do that module right. Like it's something, I guess it was railroady or something, or it just didn't quite hit the mark with people that were nostalgic for it. So the guys were just going nuts, making all these jokes, and they got really excited about it. And some maniac said he would run it, and when it was Kes Cavaltus, and he said, yeah, here's a map. Just tell me what your faction is, and we'll play.
Platobor asks an interesting question. So what was the deal with the Secrets of Blackmoor director? Was he just chafing with the playing D&D wrong thing? Yeah, pretty much. That's the thing most people chafe on, is the idea that you can do a thing wrong. They know that there are multiple ways of doing things right, but they translate that as like, oh, everything I do is going to be right then, right? And it's like, no, I'm sorry, buddy. That's not how it works. That's not how doing things right works. It takes, you can do a lot of things in a lot of different ways, but that doesn't help you. Hold on a second. What the hell was it saying? There we go. So that's the issue people take with it, and that's the issue he took with, like, oh, Jeffro's a dick, Jeffro's a mean man, Jeffro's a mean man, and because Jeffro's a mean man, I'm not going to listen to anything you guys have to say. That's basically the idea. I feel like you were landing way pretty. I feel like that was unnecessarily far. It's funny people chafe at the playing the game right thing, given that the bros are literally playing by the rules and therefore playing it right. Well, that's the thing, is because we have some sort of evidence that we're playing it right, and nobody else does. So that's the thing that pisses them off.
So now you had all these people who were devising these off-the-wall factions. Way too powerful, in my opinion, in retrospect, but crazy themed, and as each person had the idea, he'd put an icon on the map with like the Muppet face or the whatever ridiculous picture of that they had to serve as an icon for their leader, and people went nuts with this, and we were so excited about playing in Ravenloft that multiple campaigns started playing there immediately before it was even completed being designed. And
that's interesting.
Of course, based on all of our other discussions, like if you could, we had people, we would like, the DMs would have a question about a particular hex, and they would talk to somebody like B-Dubs, for instance. We had a Confederates battling zombies in Twin Peaks. It was big. And B-Dubs gave Brian Renninger just a couple of tweets, and Brian took those 2 tweets and turned them into a session. And rinse and repeat for several other places. In my opinion, it was some of the best games we ever played. It was so fun to be in a place that literally felt magical. And we were driving Ford Broncos around on this map, and we had no idea what was there. We just knew it was going to be really hilarious and awesome when we got there. So when the official event started, you're talking major shenanigans. Someone looked at the balance of power and realized that the Elf King was like in a very bad position, and that there was no way that he could do anything. So he like had an alliance with the Count, with the Dracula player, who was the Muppet, the Count. They then used 5th generation warfare techniques to convince everybody in the campaign that Chaz, B-Dubs' notorious character from Chalapius, that Chaz had assassinated the Elf King. And we all believed this, and Geek Gab, which happened to run very, very early after the Bronstein segment of the game was launched, ran this as a news item of like, oh my gosh, Chad's killed this guy. This game is out of control. Everybody bought it hook, line, and sinker. I was part of the less intelligent group that went to explore the Elf King's location. I was part of the group that was sent to attack him, and we got there and it was like, there's really nothing here, you know. So anyway, Brovenloft, we had something called World War Wish happen, which is exactly what you think it is. I don't know how that was adjudicated. It was very strange. We also had a battle that went on. We had time dilation issues because a battle was set up that was so large it took several days to resolve it, which I just would not recommend anyone do. But Kess heroically made it through that entire process. There's too much to tell about the thing. Brovenloft is still there. After combining all of the campaigns of the BroSR into one crossover event like that, which also included a month-long war game that was televised on John Mollison's YouTube channel, the outcome of which would determine where the Stormbringer sword would end up in terms of the Pantheon. It was the most insane thing. It was a lot of work to keep it going, but you know, the time rules honestly made it easy to coordinate something that insane. There's aspects of the event are hotly debated on back channels, and when I dialed back things to something simpler and easier and saner for a lone DM to run who doesn't want to like get sucked into this sort of thing to that extent, the events of Brovenloft did influence my rating things is and sort of moving to more towards addressing the criticisms that the basic expert gave me a year ago. So anyways, I think people are it still exists in our minds, right? It still exists as a very vivid place. The idea that no one would ever go back there, or that no one would want to interact with the patrons that are there. I'm sorry, like once these things are let out into these sorts of campaigns, they have a way of being revisited one way or another. So it's part of the like when you open up the player's handbook and you see those weird maps of the cosmology of the AD&D game, like, well, we have
Minions.
something.
I haven't played that.
It's demented, but we have something similar to that.
Got another super chat here from Likely Arrow, kind of funny. What about using 1-1 space? Ending a session 1 mile from home equals 1 mile the next session has to be moved in the same direction. Make space a resource.
No? Good way to get fit.
That's true. Let's see here. We're getting towards the end of the stream. Normally we go for 2 hours, and you know I want to be respectful of your time. You're on the East Coast, and Vic is all the way in the Netherlands, so
yeah.
He's
6 a.m. here, so yeah.
At least it's not Australia.
What the hell is that?
Is there a last minute thing that you want that we didn't touch on that you want to cover? I think we touched most of the things in kind of the questions and notes that we had. Kind of went all over the place, but I think we touched everything.
I think I actually hit all the points I needed to hit. Obviously,
I want this guy as one of my companions. That'd be fun.
It's not possible
Look at him.
for me to be as awesome as I am without the many friends I have that contribute to sharpening my ideas and even making guys that show up to my readings, give me feedback. I think this How to Win It in D&D it's an extraordinary little book. It's a very surprising book. It's a shocking book.
Like eggs?
It's a book that
That's
will create an emotional response. It'll make people think. It'll shock people. The people that I know personally that have read it.
Look at this thing. It's so big.
Whether they've heard me talk a lot or whether they follow me on Twitter, when they read it, people are surprised that there's really something this big left to be discovered back in 70s gaming culture, especially when you consider how much academic and interest has been focused on the battle days of TSR. This is something that's not in the narrative. It's not how we think about role-playing games. It's not how we think about how role-playing games develop. When we synthesize all the historical facts, we're filtering it through a lens of the best gaming we've ever had, and it's still ongoing. Yeah, big shout out here to Highland Press and Neil Durando, and specifically.
Alrighty, so that's basically it. That's basically the end of the stream. They do a few plugs and stuff like that, but that's pretty much it. What did you guys think? Me personally, I was impressed. I was impressed by the job Vic and the Basic Expert did. I wonder. Buddy. Hi. Oh, fucking nerd. Give him a cargo drum? Interesting. Cool. Excellent. Alright, yeah. You're looking stylish, buddy. Congrats. Let's see here. Alright, so very entertaining and informative. I told them they should have had you or John on to wrangle Jeffro on topic. It's funny you mentioned that. It's definitely fun. What was it? So I think that you were talking to what's his face? You were talking to Ryan. I want to say his name was. It was Ryan. From I can't the Rolling Bones podcast. Took me a second. It was Ryan from the Rolling Bones podcast. Who was a pretty interesting guy. Yeah, we're definitely gonna do this. Sure is taking an awful lot of time. Oh god. Alright. I feel like I should charge this. Looking at, buddy. I didn't do nothing wrong. Oh. Oh, go to hell. Hey, like them apples. Oh, don't get away, buddy. Oh, oh, no! Look at those damn supplies. There's a little dog thing over there. That's a little concerning. Anyways, Ryan Howard is a good dude. He's related to Robert E. Howard, so that's cool. I was unaware. I feel like you're lying to me right now. That's probably fine. You gotta be real faster way to do this. Come on, come on, let me through the damn door. Need sentinel forces. Well, I don't know what that's about. Been charged depleted. That's not good. Anyways, okay, he's out of Texas if I recall, so it's probably not a stretch. Yeah. Yeah, it did meander in a few spots, but I think it was pretty good. I think it was pretty good. I was happy with it. I think Jeffro got a lot of really good content in there. Such that I actually kind of felt bad about streaming this. I felt like I didn't have enough to say. Because they're covering their points so well. So that's as far as I'm concerned, that's a pretty good problem to have. I don't know what the hell that is over there, but I'm gonna ignore it. So yeah, I think that's I don't have the resources for that. Alrighty. Locate appropriate materials. Okay. What the hell do I do? This is some serious bullshit. Pure ferrite. I need oxygen and a metal plate. Do I not have oxygen in my suit right now? Is that what you're telling me? Alright, I got an idea. Hey, buddy, I need to ride you right now. Brett. Evan Boyette says, tag you in a cheat and subscribe to the channel. Thank you, buddy. So I think we're gonna close it out here then, because I think this is fun. I'm also getting really distracted on stream, insofar as the game is concerned. So it's about time for me to bounce. Thank you, folks, for sticking around. We ran for about 3 hours. I think it was fun. I think it was a successful stream. We had a bunch of people tune in, which was extra cool. So I will see you folks later. And thanks again. This is a lot of fun. Peace.